Hello guys, welcome to Phoenix What If. So in this video, we will see, what if Naruto was the Jinchuriki of the Black Dragon Acnologia and fell in love with Wendy Marvell? If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1. The dragon within the forest whispered with sounds that didn't belong. Naruto Uzumaki crouched on a weathered branch, his black cloak rippling in the breeze as he studied the clearing below. 3 weeks tracking these rogue ninjas, and finally he had them cornered. The mission scroll had been explicit: observe and report back. Nothing more, but something else had drawn him here. A strange pulsing energy that made the seal on his stomach burn like liquid metal. You feel it too, don't you? He whispered, knowing the beast within wouldn't answer directly. Acnologia never did. Instead, a wave of irritation washed through his consciousness, the black dragon's version of acknowledgement. Below, 4 figures huddled around a small fire. They wore no headbands, their allegiance written only in the cruel efficiency of their movements. One held a scroll with familiar markings, stolen jutsu from the Hidden Leaf archives. Naruto's fingers tightened around the rough bark. He hadn't slept in 3 days, pushing himself to catch up to these thieves before they crossed into Earth Country. His reflection in water puddles showed eyes ringed with exhaustion, the whisker marks on his cheeks darker than usual, a sign that Acnologia's chakra simmered close to the surface. Just observe, he reminded himself, though every instinct screamed to finish this now. The smallest of the Rogu's, a wiry man with a scarred face, suddenly stiffened. Something's wrong with the air, he hissed, drawing a curved blade. Naruto felt it too, a heaviness, like the moment before lightning strikes. The forest had gone completely silent. Then the world tore open. 10 feet above the clearing, the air itself seemed to rip apart. Blue light spilled from a jagged crack that hung suspended like broken glass. The rogues scrambled back, weapons raised. Naruto leaned forward, transfixed. Inside his seal, Acnologia's presence surged with sudden interest. A small figure tumbled through the rift, hitting the ground with a soft thud. Long blue hair splayed across the forest floor as the girl, she couldn't be older than 15, struggled to rise on trembling arms. What the hell? The largest rogue approached, kunai drawn. Some kind of summoning. The girl lifted her head, revealing a delicate face marred by confusion and fear. Her eyes widened at the armed men surrounding her. Please, she said in accented but understandable language. I don't know how I got here. The scarred man laughed. Well, aren't we lucky? Looks like we caught ourselves something interesting to sell. Something dark and protective roiled in Naruto's chest. Without conscious thought, he was moving. The first rogue never saw him coming. Naruto dropped from the trees, his fist connecting with the man's temple before the others registered his presence. The second lunged with a poisoned blade. Naruto pivoted, caught his wrist, and redirected the momentum into a brutal takedown. Leaf Ninja. The leader snarled, hands already forming seals. The blue-haired girl scrambled backward, pressing against a tree trunk as earth jutsu tore up the ground where she'd been sitting. Naruto's shadow clones materialized in a puff of smoke, diverting attention while he cut through their flanks. The fight should have been simple, he'd faced worse odds before. But the strange energy from the rift seemed to interfere with his chakra control. A fireball jutsu caught him off guard, singeing his shoulder and sending him rolling across the clearing. Get the girl, the leader ordered as Naruto regained his footing. The blue-haired girl's expression shifted from fear to determination. She stood, feet planted firmly, and took a deep breath. Sky dragons roar. A tornado of wind exploded from her mouth, catching 2 of the rogues and hurling them through the underbrush. The force bent trees and scattered the campfire into harmless embers. Naruto froze, momentarily stunned. Not by the power. He'd seen devastating jutsu before, but by what he'd felt within it. Something familiar. Something draconic. The scarred leader recovered first. Akeke Genkai. Even better. He flashed through hand signs. Earth style. Stone prison. The ground beneath the girl liquefied, threatening to swallow her whole. Without hesitation, Naruto channeled chakra to his feet, crossing the distance in a blur of motion. His arms circled the girls. waste as he leapt clear of the jutsu's range. "Hold on," he murmured, setting her down behind a massive oak. "I'll finish this." Her wide brown eyes studied him with a mixture of gratitude and wariness. "You have dragon power inside you," she said simply, as if stating an obvious fact. The observation hit Naruto like a physical blow. No one outside Konoha's highest ranks knew what he contained. Before he could respond, a kunai thudded into the tree beside his head. "Later," he promised, turning back to the fight. The rogue leader's eyes narrowed as Naruto stepped back into the clearing. "The Hokage's pet monster," he sneered. "They must be desperate to send you on retrieval missions." The taunt was meant to provoke, to make him sloppy with anger. 5 years ago, it would have worked. Now, Naruto merely smiled. A cold expression that didn't reach his eyes. Last chance to surrender the scroll and walk away. The leader's response was a complex jutsu that sent spears of rock erupting from the ground. Naruto dodged with practiced ease, but found his path blocked by a wall of earth. The remaining rogues coordinated their attack, fire and lightning converging on his position. Within the seal, Acnologia stirred. "Use me." The dragon's thoughts rumbled like distant thunder. "Crush these insects." Naruto gritted his teeth, resisting the seductive pull of that power. For years he'd IED on the dragon's chakra as a last resort, each use leaving him more drained, more susceptible to the dragon's influence. Lady Tsunade had warned him that one day, he might not come back from that state. A blade sliced across his back. Another caught his thigh. Surrounded and outnumbered, Naruto felt his control slipping. "Stop hurting him." The blue-haired girl darted from her hiding place, hands extended. Sky Dragon's healing spell. A gentle blue glow enveloped Naruto, and he gasped as his wounds began to close. More than that, the constant burning of his seal subsided, Acnologia's present. CE receding to a dull roar rather than the consuming tide it had been moments before. In that moment of clarity, Naruto saw his opening. Wind style. Rasenshuriken. The spiraling disk of chakra howled as it expanded, engulfing the rogue leader before he could complete his next jutsu. When the light faded, the clearing had been transformed, trees uprooted, earth gouged in concentric circles. 3. Unconscious bodies scattered among the debris. The fourth had escaped with the scroll. Naruto cursed under his breath. His mission parameters explicitly required retrieval of the stolen jutsu. But as he turned toward the blue-haired girl, priorities shifted. She swayed on her feet, clearly exhausted from whatever healing technique she'd used. "That was amazing," he said, offering a steadying hand. "I'm Naruto, by the way. Naruto Uzumaki." Wendy Marvell. Her smile was tentative but warm. "Sky Dragon Slayer of Fairy Tale. Though, I don't think I'm in Fury anymore." "Dragon Slayer," Naruto repeated, the term stirring something within his seal. "You're right. This is the land of fire, near Konohagakure." Confusion clouded her features. Those places don't exist in Earthland. Above them, the rift that had brought her pulsed once more before shrinking to nothing, leaving only empty air and unanswered questions. "That can't be good," Naruto muttered. "Listen, I need to secure these guys and report back." "But you," he hesitated, professional duty warring with instinct. "The thing you said about dragon power. How did you know?" Wendy tilted her head, studying him with surprising intensity for someone so young. "I was raised by a dragon. Grandini taught me Sky Dragon Slayer magic. You have something different. Darker, more ancient. But definitely dragon." Naruto felt the blood drain from his face. In 19 years, no one had ever so casually identified what he contained. The third Hokage had sealed Acnologia within him as an infant, after the Black Dragon had nearly destroyed Konoha. Most villagers knew him only as a Jinchuriki, a human container for a monster, but few understood exactly what type of creature he held. "We shouldn't talk about this here," he said quietly, scanning the trees. "I need to get you somewhere safe." "Safe from what?" Wendy asked, her perceptiveness belying her youthful appearance. "In this world," Naruto replied, binding the unconscious rogues with chakra-infused rope. "Dragons aren't exactly welcome guests." The Hokage's office always felt smaller when Tsunade was angry. Right now, the legendary Sannin looked ready to reduce her desk to splinters with her bare hands. "Let me understand this clearly," she said, each word clipped and precise. You abandoned your mission objective to bring back an unknown foreign entity who felt rough, and I cannot believe I'm saying this, a hole in the sky. Naruto stood at attention, mission filthy and exhausted. A dimensional rift, according to our research division. Don't get technical with me, brat. Tsunade massaged her temples. Where is this girl now? Medical wing. Sakura is examining her. And the stolen scroll. Naruto winced. The fourth rogue escaped with it during the confrontation. Wonderful. Tsunade leaned back in her chair. So instead of recovering classified jutsu, you've brought me an interdimensional tourist who might be a security threat. She's not a threat, Naruto countered. More forcefully than he intended. She actually helped me. Her healing abilities stabilized Acnologia's chakra when it was flaring. That caught Tsunade's attention. The fifth Hokage leaned forward. Amber eyes sharp with interest. Explain. Naruto described Wendy's Sky Dragon Slayer magic and its apparent calming effect on his seal. It was like harmony. For a moment, the dragon wasn't fighting me. It was almost like his chakra recognized hers. Tsunade fell silent, fingers steepled beneath her chin. Finally, she sighed. The council will want her interrogated by Ibiki. No. The word came out before Naruto could stop it. She's just a kid, lost and confused. Breaking into her mind won't help anyone. And if she's a plant, an enemy operative designed to get close to our Jinchuriki. She fell through a tear in reality, Naruto countered. I saw it happen, and she could have let those rogues kill me if she were an enemy. Tsunade studied him with the shrewd assessment that had kept her alive through 3 ninja wars. You're being protective. That's unlike you with strangers. Heat crept up Naruto's neck. It's not. She just reminds me of myself. Alone in a strange place with powers she didn't ask for. Fine, Tsunade conceded after a tense moment. No interrogation for now, but she stays under observation. Your observation, since you're so convinced of her innocence. Consider it your new mission. Watch her, learn what you can about these rifts, and report anything unusual. Relief washed through him. Thank you, Lady Tsunade. Don't thank me yet. A predatory smile curved the Hokage's lips. You still have to explain to Kakashi why his tracking team needs to clean up your mess and recover that scroll. The hospital room was aggressively ordinary, white walls, single bed. Window overlooking the village. Wendy sat cross-legged on the thin mattress, watching Sakura check readings on a handheld medical device. Your chakra network is unlike anything I've seen. The pink-haired medic was saying. It's fully formed but follows different pathways than ours. Almost like it evolved under different conditions. We call it magical containers in Fury, Wendy explained. Every wizard has one. Mine is specialized for Dragon Slayer magic. Naruto leaned against the doorframe, observing the exchange. Cleaned up and rested, Wendy looked even. Younger than he'd initially thought. Perhaps 13 or 14. Her blue hair was tied back in twin tails, and she wore borrowed clothes that hung loosely on her small frame. Yet despite her appearance, there was something ancient in her eyes when she spoke of dragons. All clear, physical threat-wise, Sakura announced, noticing Naruto. Though I'd love to run more tests on her magical energy when she's rested. Maybe later, Naruto replied. Lady Tsunade wants her under supervision, not under a microscope. Sakura raised a pink eyebrow. Defensive, aren't we? Just following orders. Sakura gathered her equipment with a knowing smile. Well, I'll leave you two to get acquainted. Wendy, if you need anything medical, just ask for me. Once they were alone, Wendy's shoulders relaxed visibly. Your friend is nice, but all those tests made me nervous. Sakura's the best medic in the village after Tsunade, Naruto said, taking the chair beside her bed. She's just curious. We don't get many visitors from other dimensions. I still can't believe that's what happened. Wendy hugged her knees to her chest. 1 minute I was on a mission with Carla, investigating strange energy readings near Magnolia. The next, everything twisted, and I was falling through that light. Carla, my Exceed partner. She's a cat, but she can talk and fly and... Wendy trailed off at Naruto's expression. That sounds crazy here, doesn't it? No crazier than anything else. Naruto smiled reassuringly. So in your world, there are others like you. Dragon Slayers. Wendy nodded. Natsu uses Fire Dragon Slayer magic. Gajeel is the Iron Dragon Slayer. There are others too. We were all raised by dragons who disappeared on the same day years ago. And they taught you to slay dragons. That's the name of the magic. But it's more complicated. Wendy's voice grew softer. Grandini taught me healing magic primarily. She said sky dragons protect more than they destroy. Something twisted in Naruto's chest. Envy. Perhaps. His relationship with the dragon inside him had never been so benevolent. What about you? Wendy asked. The dragon I sense in you feels different. Contained, but powerful. Is everyone in your world like that? No, Naruto said quietly. Just me. After a moment's hesitation, he lifted his shirt, revealing the intricate seal spiraling across his stomach. I'm what's called a Jinchuriki, a human vessel for a powerful being. In my case, the black dragon of the apocalypse. Wendy's eyes widened. Acnologia, she whispered, the name falling from her lips like a prayer. We have legends about him in my world too. The dragon that became so powerful, he was feared by all others. The recognition sent a jolt through Naruto. You know of him. Every dragon slayer does. He's the reason our dragons might have disappeared. Wendy leaned forward, studying his seal with newfound understanding. But in my world, he's free. A force of destruction. You're keeping him contained within yourself. Since I was a baby, Naruto confirmed. The fourth Hokage sealed him inside me to save the village. It's not always easy. His chakra, his power, is corrosive. Using it comes at a price. That's why my healing magic affected you so strongly, Wendy realized. Sky magic naturally counters corruption. Grandini taught me to purify poisoned air and heal contaminated wounds. Their conversation was interrupted by a sharp knock. Shikamaru Nara entered without waiting for a response, his usually bored expression tightened with concern. Naruto, we've got a situation. 2 more rifts have appeared, one near the Land of Waves and another at the Valley of the End. Reports are coming in of strange individuals with unusual abilities. The Raikage is demanding an emergency 5-cage summit. Others from Fairy Tail, Wendy said immediately, sitting up straight. They must be looking for me. Shikamaru's calculating gaze shifted to her. Your friend's Avenue caused quite the diplomatic incident. A nearly naked ice wizard demolished half a Cloud Village outpost before being subdued. That sounds like Gray, Wendy said, a smile breaking across her face. He has a habit of losing his clothes during fights. And a fire-breathing pink-haired destructive maniac is currently melting his way through Cloud Country's eastern border patrol. Natsu. Wendy was fully animated now. Relief evident in her voice. They're both okay. Naruto felt a strange mixture of emotions at her obvious joy. Relief that she wasn't alone in this world, certainly. But also a peculiar hollowness at the thought that she would soon be reunited with her own people, removing any reason for their paths to remain crossed. Shikamaru sighed heavily. This is such a drag. Dai Tsunade wants you both in her office immediately. If these really are your friends, he added to Wendy, we need to establish contact before the Cloud Ninjas decide they're hostile invaders. He diplomatic quarter buzzed with unusual activity as representatives from neighboring countries arrived for emergency consultations. Naruto guided Wendy through side streets to avoid the crowds, easily aware of the stares they attracted. People are looking at us, Wendy murmured. At me, Naruto corrected. Being Acnologia's vessel makes people nervous. That's ridiculous, she replied with unexpected fierceness. You're not the dragon, you're its keeper. They should be grateful. The simple statement warmed something long cold within him. Most people in Konoha had eventually accepted his presence. But few had ever expressed gratitude for the burden he carried. They passed a group of children playing ninja in an alleyway. One small boy with a wooden kunai spotted Naruto and froze, eyes wide with recognition. It's the Dragon Shadow, he whispered loudly to his friends, using the nickname that had spread after Naruto's first controlled use of Acnologia's power during a mission gone wrong. Rather than running away as Naruto expected, the children crowded closer, excitement evident in their faces. Is it true you can fly? One girl asked boldly. Only sometimes, Naruto answered, surprised by the positive attention. Do you breathe fire like in the stories? Not fire. Something different. The children looked ready to ask more questions when an anxious parent appeared. hurrying them away with backward glances. Some things hadn't changed completely. They admire you, Wendy observed as they continued walking. The younger generation doesn't remember the attack, Naruto explained. To them, I'm just another powerful ninja with a cool ability. Their parents remember the destruction Acnologia caused before he was sealed. They turned onto a quieter street, cherry blossoms drifting across their path. Wendy caught one in her palm, examining its delicate structure. In my world, we have a saying. The wounds dragons leave never fully heal, but they give strength to those who bear them. She looked up at him with those ancient eyes in a young face. I think that's true of you. Before Naruto could respond, the ground beneath them shuddered. A distant explosion sent birds scattering from the trees. Atop the Hokage monument, alarm signals flared red against the afternoon sky. That's coming from the main gate, Naruto said, instantly alert. Without discussion, they changed direction. Racing toward the disturbance, civilians streamed in the opposite direction, guided by Chunin escorts. Near the village wall, a contingent of Anbu operatives had established a perimeter around Natsu. Wendy called out, recognizing the figure at the center of the commotion. A young man with spiky pink hair stood amid a circle of scorched earth, fists wreathed in flames. As he faced off against a dozen masked ninjas, his vest was torn, and blood trickled from a cut above his eye, but his stance remained aggressive. Where's Wendy? He was shouting. I can smell her nearby. If you've hurt her, Natsu. Stop. Wendy broke away from Naruto, ducking under the Anbu barrier. I'm here. I'm okay. The fire dragon slayer froze, flames extinguishing as he spotted his guild mate. Relief transformed his fierce expression. Wendy. Thank goodness. His eyes narrowed as they landed on Naruto, who had followed close behind. Who's this guy, and why does he smell like? He's a friend, Wendy interrupted quickly. He's been protecting me. The tension in the air remained palpable as Anbu members maintained their positions. Naruto stepped forward, hands raised in a peaceful gesture. Let's all calm down. No one needs to fight here. Tell that to the welcome committee, Natsu retorted, gesturing to the ninjas surrounding him. They attacked the moment I asked about Wendy. After you melted the gate. An Anbu captain countered dryly. It was in my way. Naruto suppressed a smile, recognizing the familiar logic of someone who solved most problems with direct force. How about we continue this discussion with the Hokage? She's expecting us anyway. Before anyone could agree, a new disturbance rippled through the gathered forces. The crowd parted to reveal Lady Tsunade herself, accompanied by a stern-faced man with a distinctive scar across his nose and a woman with unnerving red eyes. Ibiki reports that the Cloud Ninja prisoner has escaped, Tsunade announced without preamble. The ice user. And he's not alone. Apparently a woman in armor decimated the containment squad. Urza and Gray, Natsu said with undisguised pride. Told you they'd come for us. Tsunade's attention shifted to the Dragon Slayer, her expression calculating. You, pink hair, you're from the same place as her. She nodded toward Wendy. Fairy Tail Guild, strongest in fury, Natsu confirmed, squaring his shoulders. Look, we don't want trouble. We just came for our friends. Your friends are arriving through tears in reality all over the 5 nations, Tsunade replied coolly. Creating diplomatic incidents and raising fears of invasion. So forgive me if I'm not immediately reassured by your peaceful intentions. Naruto stepped between them, sensing the situation deteriorating. Lady Tsunade, maybe we should hear them out. Wendy has been nothing but helpful since she arrived. The Hokage's amber eyes softened fractionally. Always the diplomat now, aren't you? Fine, your pink-haired friend can join our discussion, provided he keeps his flames to himself inside my village. As the group moved toward the Hokage Tower, Naruto noticed Wendy hanging back, her expression troubled. What's wrong? He asked quietly. If Natsu, Gray, and Urza are here, something terrible must have happened in Earthland. She bit her lip anxiously. They're 3 of our strongest wizards. They wouldn't all leave the guild undefended unless they had no choice. Naruto felt Acnologia stir within the seal, a ripple of dark interest that had become increasingly frequent since Wendy's arrival. Whatever connection existed between their worlds, the Black Dragon recognized its significance. And that, more than anything, made Naruto uneasy. The Hokage's office had never hosted such an unusual gathering. Tsunade sat behind her desk, fingers steepled as she observed the collection of wizards and ninjas crowding the space. Shizune stood at her right, clutching her ever-present clipboard, while Kakashi lounged against the wall, his visible eye betraying more interest than his casual posture suggested. Natsu paced restlessly, unable to remain still even under the warning glares of the Anbu guards. Wendy sat quietly beside Naruto, her small hand occasionally brushing against his arm when Natsu's explanations became particularly animated. "So let me understand this, Tsunade," said when the Fire Dragon Slayer paused for breath. "In your world, these dimensional anchors have been stable for centuries. Until 3 days ago, when they began to fracture for no apparent reason." "That's what the master said," Natsu confirmed. "1 minute everything's normal, the next Levy's magical instruments are going crazy and people are getting sucked into portals. The whole guild mobilized to investigate. And you followed Wendy's magical signature through one of these rifts," Kakashi concluded, with no way to return. Natsu scratched his head sheepishly. "Well, when you put it that way, it sounds kinda reckless." "Imagine that," Naruto muttered, earning a small smile from Wendy and a sharp look from Natsu. "What about the others you mentioned?" Tsunade pressed. "Gray Fullbuster and Urza Scarlet. Last I saw, they were headed toward some village with lightning symbols everywhere. The hidden cloud," Kakashi supplied. "Which explains the Raikage's urgent communications." Tsunade massaged her temples. "This diplomatic nightmare keeps expanding." A sudden commotion outside drew everyone's attention. The door burst open to reveal Shikamaru, unusually disheveled. "We've got another situation. A massive rift has opened in the center of the village. It's different from the others." Without waiting for dismissal, they rushed to the Hokage Monument's observation deck. From this vantage point, the anomaly was unmistakable, a swirling vortex of midnight blue energy hovering above the village square, considerably larger than the rift that had brought Wendy through. "That's not a natural portal," Wendy said, her voice tight with concern. "The energy feels wrong, corrupted." As if in response to her assessment, the vortex pulsed, expanding outward. Dark tendrils of energy lashed from its center, striking buildings and leaving scorch marks where they touched. Civilians ran for shelter as ninja response teams established evacuation routes. "Can you close it?" Tsunade demanded, turning to the fairy tale wizards. Natsu shook his head. "That's beyond our abilities. We'd need Levy or Freed for something like this. Then we contain the damage and evacuate the area," Tsunade decided. Already issuing orders to her Anbu captain, Naruto stepped closer to the railing, studying the phenomenon. Within his seal, Acnologia's presence swelled with unexpected intensity. "Mine." The dragon's thought rumbled through his consciousness. "They seek what is mine." "Who seeks?" Naruto whispered, earning curious glances from those nearby. "What do they want?" Before anyone could question his strange behavior, the vortex collapsed in on itself with a thunderous implosion. When the dust settled, 5 figures stood in the village square where the rift had been. Even from a distance, their appearance was striking. Each wore elaborate robes embellished with draconic symbols, their faces concealed behind masks carved to resemble different dragon aspects. They moved with coordinated precision of a well-trained unit, forming a pentagram formation in the cleared space. "Not good," Naruto muttered. The central figure raised a staff topped with a lacrima-like crystal. His voice, supernaturally amplified, echoed across the village. "People of this realm, we are the Dragon Conclave. We seek no conflict with your kind. Surrender the vessels of dragon power to us, and we shall depart in peace. Resist, and face the consequences of defying those who walk between worlds." Wendy gasped softly. "They're after dragon slayers. After us. And me," Naruto added grimly, feeling Acnologia's rage building within. "The strongest dragon power in this world." Tsunade's expression hardened. "Konoha does not surrender its people to threats. Prepare for engagement." "Wait," Naruto said, placing a restraining hand on her arm, a familiarity few would dare with the legendary Sannin. "Let me talk to them first. If they want Acnologia, I should understand why. And if it's a trap?" Kakashi asked reasonably. Natsu stepped forward, flames already dancing around his fists. "Then we spring it together. No one's taking Wendy anywhere she doesn't want to go." The Dragon Slayer's protective declaration mirrored Naruto's own thoughts so precisely that he found himself nodding in agreement. We go down together. Show them that dragon power in either world isn't something to be trifled with. Wendy stood between them, determination replacing her earlier uncertainty. I'll support you both with enhancement spells. My magic can amplify your abilities. Tsunade studied the three of them, a most unusual alliance, before sighing in resignation. Fine. Make contact, assess their intentions. But at the first sign of hostility, our forces engage. Understood. As they descended toward the confrontation, Naruto felt a strange sense of rightness walking alongside Wendy and Natsu. For years, he'd been Konoha's unique weapon, isolated by the nature of his power. Now, suddenly, he wasn't alone in his draconic connection. The masked figures watched their approach with eerie stillness. Up close, the craftsmanship of their disguises became apparent. Each mask depicted a different dragon aspect: earth, metal, fire, water. And at their center, a mask of pure obsidian that reflected no light. I'm Naruto Uzumaki of Konoha, he announced, stopping at a cautious distance. You said you seek vessels of dragon power. Why? The leader tilted his head, the black mask revealing nothing of the face behind it. The Jinchuriki of Acnologia. Yes, we have waited long for this meeting. You didn't answer my question. Because the answer is complex, vessel. The leader's voice carried an unsettling resonance. The boundaries between worlds are failing. The ancient barriers that separated dragon realms are collapsing. Only by gathering the essence of all dragon kinds can we restore the balance. That's convenient, Natsu interjected, skepticism evident. And I suppose you just need us to hand over our magic for the greater good. Your cooperation would be preferred, another figure spoke, this one wearing a mask of burnished copper. But it is not required. The harvest can proceed regardless of your consent. A chill ran down Naruto's spine at the clinical detachment in those words. Beside him, Wendy stiffened. Harvest, she echoed. You're talking about extracting our magic. That would kill us. The leader made a dismissive gesture. Individual vessels are temporary. Dragon power is eternal. It must be preserved as the dimensions collapse. Yeah, that's not happening, Natsu growled. Heat radiating from his body. Fairy tale protects its own. As does Konoha, Naruto added, feeling chakra gathering in his core. The obsidian mask revealed nothing, but the leader's posture shifted subtly. We had hoped for wisdom from the vessel of the Apocalypse Dragon. Your cooperation would have been rewarded with mercy for this realm. Without warning, the five figures moved in perfect synchronization, slamming their staffs against the ground. A complex array of runes spread outward, encircling the three dragon power users in a cage of purple light. Containment successful, the copper-masked figure announced. Beginning extraction sequence. Pain lanced through Naruto's seal as the array pulsed with hungry energy. Beside him, Wendy cried out, dropping to one knee. Blue wisps of magic were forcibly drawn from her body. Natsu roared in defiance, flames erupting around him only to be absorbed by the barrier. Through the haze of agony, Naruto sensed movement from above, Konoha's forces responding to the attack. Kunai and shuriken rained down, only to disintegrate upon contact with the barrier. Let me out, Acnologia's voice thundered within him. These fools dare to take what is mine. For once, Naruto wasn't inclined to resist. The sight of Wendy's pain as her dragon magic was forcibly extracted broke something inside him. He reached for the seal, prepar. To loosen it just enough to access Acnologia's power without losing control. But before he could, Wendy's small hand clasped his wrist. Together, she gasped, her face pale but determined. Sky and shadow in harmony. Understanding flashed between them. Naruto nodded, shifting his focus from breaking the seal to merging their energies as they had momentarily during their first encounter. Wendy took a shuddering breath. Sky Dragon's secret art, Milky Way. Instead of attacking the barrier directly, her spell created a gentle glow that enveloped both her and Naruto. Within his mindscape, Acnologia's presence surged forward, but instead of the usual overwhelming darkness, the dragon's energy flowed like water, guided by Wendy's sky magic. Now, Naruto, she called. Naruto formed the hand signs for his shadow clone jutsu. But instead of his usual chakra, He channeled the harmonized draconic energy they had created. Dragon Shadow Dance. The technique that materialized was like nothing he'd ever performed. Dozens of clones appeared, each wreathed in a mixture of Acnologia's dark chakra and Wendy's sky magic, shadow and light intertwined in impossible harmony. The extraction array faltered, its runes destabilizing as the merged dragon energies pushed against its constraints. Impossible, the leader hissed. The dragon powers cannot coexist. You clearly don't know dragons very well, Natsu laughed, finding his second wind as the extraction weakened. Fire Dragon's brilliant flame, his attack, combined with the pressure from Naruto and Wendy's merged power, shattered the barrier in an explosion of conflicting energies. The concussive force sent the masked figures sliding backward, their perfect formation disrupted. Konoha's ninja forces descended into the square, led by Kakashi and a contingent of Anbu. The robed figures regrouped quickly, their leader raising his staff once more. This confrontation is premature, he announced, his voice no longer carrying its earlier confidence. We shall return when the boundaries have weakened further. Remember, vessels, what we do preserves all worlds, not just our own. Before anyone could prevent their escape, the 5 SLA MMED their staffs into the ground simultaneously. A smaller version of their arrival portal manifested, swallowing them in a flash of midnight blue energy. In the sudden silence that followed, Naruto turned to Wendy, whose legs gave out as the adrenaline faded. He caught her before she hit the ground, cradling her smaller form against his chest. That was amazing, he said softly. What you did with Acnologia's chakra. Sky Dragon magic is about harmony, she replied, exhaustion evident in her voice. Your dragon is powerful but chaotic. Together, we can balance each other. Over her head, Naruto met Natsu's evaluating gaze. The Fire Dragon Slayer studied them for a long moment before offering a slight nod, acknowledgement, perhaps, of what had just transpired between them. Those guys will be back, Natsu said grimly. And they seemed pretty determined to harvest us. Let them try, Naruto replied, feeling more centered than he had in years. Within his seal, Acnologia's presence remained unusually calm, satisfied by the power they had demonstrated. We'll be ready. As medical teams arrived to assess the damage, Naruto maintained his protective hold on Wendy. Something Fundame. NTAL had shifted between them during the battle, a connection forged through their shared dragon heritage and the unexpected harmony of their powers. In a world that had often feared what he contained, Naruto had found someone who not only accepted his dragon but complemented it. The realization was as terrifying as it was exhilarating. Above the village, new rifts flickered into existence like STARS appearing at twilight, doorways between worlds that should never have touched. Whatever had begun with Wendy's arrival was accelerating, bringing their separate realms into dangerous proximity. And, somewhere within those merging realities, the Dragon Conclave prepared their next move. Chapter 1 End. Chapter 2. Dragon Symphony morning dawned over Konoha with uneasy brilliance. 3 days had passed since the Dragon Conclave's appearance, and the village hummed with nervous activity. Civilians reinforced homes while ninja patrols doubled along the walls. The strange rifts that had brought Wendy and Natsu to the ninja world continued to appear with increasing frequency, brief flashes of blue light that opened and closed like blinking eyes. Naruto stood atop the Hokage monument, the stone. Faces of village leaders cold beneath his feet as he watched another rift flicker into existence near the western forest before disappearing seconds later. The wind carried the scent of rain and tension. Thinking about jumping, a voice asked from behind him. Naruto didn't turn, recognizing Kakashi's deliberately casual tone. Just watching our worlds fall apart. His former teacher stepped beside him, mismatched eyes scanning the horizon. Lady Tsunade has authorized your mission. Though I should warn you, the council wasn't thrilled about sending our Jinchuriki beyond village borders during what might be an interdimensional invasion. They're never thrilled with anything I do. Naruto shrugged, finally turning to face the copy ninja. Any word from the cloud? Only threats. The Raikage is convinced we engineered these rifts as some elaborate attack. Kakashi sighed, his mask shifting slightly. Having a half-naked ice wizard demolish one of their outposts didn't help matters. Gray was just looking for his friends. By freezing 37 Cloud Ninja into human popsicles. I didn't say he was diplomatic about it. A comfortable silence fell between them, the kind that only comes after years of shared danger. Finally, Kakashi produced a scroll from his vest pocket and handed it to Naruto. Your official mission parameters. Find the fairy tale wizards, convince them to stop destroying our political alliances. And gather intelligence on these rifts. Lady Tsunade also wants you to keep a special eye on your blue-haired friend. Naruto's fingers tightened around the scroll. Wendy isn't a threat. No one said she was. Kakashi's visible eye crinkled with knowing amusement. But her ability to stabilize your seal makes her valuable. If these rifts keep appearing, we may need that talent on a more permanent basis. The implication wasn't lost on Naruto. If Wendy could help him control Acnologia's power more effectively, the council would want her to remain in OHA indefinitely, regardless of her own wishes. She belongs with her guild, Naruto said firmly. Once we find the others and figure out what's causing these rifts, they deserve to go home. Perhaps. Kakashi placed a hand on his former student's shoulder. Just remember where your home is, Naruto. Even dragons need somewhere to return to. With a swirl of leaves, the copy ninja vanished, leaving Naruto alone with the village spread below and the weight of unspoken concerns. Within his seal, Acnologia stirred with unusual alertness. Since the battle with the conclave, the dragon's presence felt different, more focused. Less chaotically malevolent, as if it too were waiting for something. The eastern gate bustled with activity as Naruto arrived with his packed gear. Sakura waited with medical supplies, checking her inventory with characteristic thoroughness. Nearby, Natsu entertained a group of young Ninja Academy students with small controlled bursts of flame from his fingertips. Where's Wendy? Naruto asked, scanning the gathering. Sakura jerked her thumb toward a quiet corner where the Sky Dragon Slayer sat cross-legged, eyes closed in meditation. She's been like that for an hour. Something about preparing her magical containers for the journey. Naruto approached quietly, not wanting to disturb her concentration. Wendy's expression in repose was peaceful, the morning I'd giving her blue hair an ethereal quality. He'd spent the past 3 days showing her around Konoha between debriefing sessions with intelligence officers. Despite the circumstances, he'd found MSELF enjoying her company, her genuine curiosity about his world, her quiet wisdom that seemed at odds with her youthful appearance. As if sensing his presence, Wendy's eyes fluttered open. Good morning, Naruto. Her smile was warm if slightly tired. I was just centering my magic. The rifts seem to drain my energy when I'm near them. Are you sure you're up for this journey? Naruto asked, offering a hand to help her up. We could delay another day. We can't wait. Determination sharpened her features. Gray and Urza are still being held by the Cloud Ninja, and according to Natsu, more of my guild might be scattered across your world. Besides, her voice softened. I think I can help you with Acnologia during the journey. The mention of his sealed dragon brought a familiar burning sensation to Naruto's stomach. Since the synchronization of their powers during the conclave fight, Acnologia had been more restless, pushing against the seal with greater frequency. I'd appreciate that, he admitted. Something's changed since we fought together. Before Wendy could respond, Natsu bounded over, his ever-present energy infectious even at this early hour. Are we leaving or what? I'm all fired up to rescue Gray and Urza. We're not going to rescue them, Sakura corrected, joining the group. This is a diplomatic mission to prevent a war between Konoha and the Cloud. Natsu waved dismissively. Yeah, politics. I just want my friends back. And to avoid any more international incidents, Naruto added pointedly, remembering Tsunade's explicit warnings about letting Fire Dragon Slayer loose without supervision. As the group finished their preparations, a commotion at the gate drew their attention. Shikamaru arrived, looking even more put upon than usual, accompanied by a tall, muscular man with multiple facial piercings and a wild mane of black hair. Found this one lurking outside the village perimeter, Shikamaru drawled. Says he knows you. He nodded toward Natsu and Wendy. Gajeel. Wendy's face lit up. You made it through too. The Iron Dragon Slayer crossed his arms, red eyes surveying the ninja village with undisguised suspicion. Weird place you've landed in, kid. Took me 3 days to track your scent through these forests. Another one, Sakura murmured to Naruto. How many of these dragon slayers exist in their world? Not enough, apparently, Naruto replied, watching the reunion with mixed emotions. Each new arrival from Earthland brought Wendy closer to her people, and potentially closer to leaving once they found a way to repair the rifts. The thought bothered him more than it should have. After quick introductions and a brief explanation of their mission, the expanded group departed through Konoha's eastern gate. Their immediate destination, a border outpost where they could safely cross into Cloud territory with proper diplomatic credentials. The longer-term goal remained more nebulous, finding Gray and Urza while investigating the proliferating rifts between worlds. As they traveled through the dense forests surrounding Konoha, Naruto noticed Wendy repeatedly glancing at him with quiet concern. Finally, during a brief rest stop, she approached while the others refilled water containers at a nearby stream. Your seal is bothering you more than usual, she said softly. It wasn't a question. Naruto instinctively placed a hand over his stomach. How can you tell? Your breathing changes when it flares, and your chakra feels turbulent. She knelt beside him, hands hovering uncertainly. May I try something? A diagnostic spell might help me understand what's happening. After a moment's hesitation, Naruto nodded. Wendy's palms glowed with gentle blue light as she placed them lightly over his seal. Her ch sent a cascade of sensations through him. Cool mountain air, the whisper of wind through tall pines, a sense of vastness beyond human comprehension. Within his mindscape, Acnologia's presence shifted, moving toward Wendy's energy like a moth drawn to flame. Your dragon is responding to me, Wendy murmured, eyes half closed in concentration. It's almost like recognition. That's not reassuring, Naruto said through gritted teeth. Acnologia isn't known for his friendly nature. A smile touched Wendy's lips. Neither was Grandini at first. Dragons are proud creatures. They respond to respect and strength. Her hands pressed more firmly against the seal. I think your Acnologia and the one in my world might be connected somehow. Maybe even the same entity existing across dimensions. The suggestion sent a chill through Naruto. If that's true, then what happens if they ever meet? Wendy's expression grew troubled. I don't know, but I do know we can use this connection to help you. The Dragon Conclave will return. And when they do, you'll need better control. And you think you can help with that? I know I can. Her confidence was quiet but absolute. Sky Dragon magic specializes in harmony and balance. If we train together, I can teach you techniques to channel Acnologia's power without it overwhelming you. From the stream, Sakura called for them to continue moving. As they rejoined the group, Naruto found himself walking beside Wendy, their steps naturally synchronizing. When did you first realize what you were? He asked after they had been traveling in comfortable silence for some time. Being a dragon slayer, I mean. Wendy's expression softened with memory. Grandini raised me from infancy. I always knew I was different from the humans in nearby villages. The first time I accidentally used Sky Dragon's roar, I blew the roof off our cave. She laughed softly. Grandini was so proud, even while scolding me for not controlling my breath properly. You were lucky, Naruto said, thinking of his own childhood. Having someone who understood your power from the beginning. What about you? Wendy asked. When did you learn about Acnologia? The forest path narrowed, forcing the group to walk single file for a stretch. When it widened again, Naruto resumed his place beside her, considering how much to share. I always knew something was inside me, he finally said. The village treated me differently. Fearful glances, parents pulling their children away. But no one would tell me why. Not until I was 12, when a rogue ninja tricked me into loosening the seal for the first time. The memory still brought a mix of anger and sorrow. Mizuki's taunting voice, the revelation of why the village feared him, the first terrifying surge of Acnologia's power through his young body. What happened? Wendy prompted gently. I lost control. Acnologia's chakra poured out, just enough to give me enhanced strength and speed, but I wasn't conscious of what I was doing. Naruto's hand drifted to his stomach again. Iruka-sensei, my teacher, still has scars from stopping me before I could hurt anyone else. Ahead of them, Natsu and Gajeel bickered over which direction to take at a fork in the path, their dragon-enhanced senses picking up conflicting scents. Sakura intervened with the map, pointing out the correct route with exasperated authority. After that, Naruto continued. Once the group was moving again, Lady Tsunade assigned special trainers to help me understand the seal. For years, I tried to suppress Acnologia completely, refusing to use his power no matter how dangerous the mission. But that changed, Wendy guessed. Naruto nodded. 3 years ago, my friend Sasuke was captured by enemy ninja. They were too strong, too numerous. I had a choice: use Acnologia's power or watch Sasuke die. His expression darkened with memory. I chose the dragon. You saved your friend. Yes, but afterward, the seal weakened. Each time, I've used Acnologia's chakra since then, it becomes harder to push him back. Naruto's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. Sometimes I hear him speaking in my mind now. Before, it was just feelings, impressions. Now there are actual words. Wendy was quiet for a long moment, processing this revelation. Finally, she reached for his hand, her small fingers intertwining with his larger ones in a gesture of solidarity that felt startlingly intimate. Dragon slayers live with dragon essence inside us too, she said. It's not the same as your situation, but I understand the fear of being summed by something greater than yourself. How do you manage it? By remembering that the dragon chose me. Her brown eyes met his with surprising intensity. Grandini could have taught her magic to anyone. But she chose me as her legacy. Your Acnologia may be sealed within you, but on some level, you were chosen to contain him when no one else could. The perspective shift hit Naruto with unexpected force. He'd spent years viewing Acnologia as a burden imposed upon him by the fourth Hokage, a sacrifice made to save the village at the cost of his childhood. He'd never considered that there might have been a reason he specifically had been selected as the vessel. That's a different way to look at it, he admitted. Wendy smiled, squeezing his hand once before releasing it. Tonight, when we camp, I'll show you the first dragon breathing technique. It might help with the seal's discomfort. As they continued their journey toward the border, Naruto found himself watching Wendy with newfound appreciation. Despite her youth and small stature, she carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who had made peace with the extraordinary power she wielded. It was, he realized, exactly what he had been seeking all his life. Dusk found them camped in a sheltered valley near a gentle stream. Sakura established a perimeter with subtle traps while Gajeel and Natsu argued over the proper way to start a campfire, an ironic debate given the latter's fire abilities. Just use your dragon breath and be done with it, Gajeel growled, arranging stones around the fire pit. Natsu looked offended. That's not how you build a proper campfire. You need the right kindling structure or it burns too fast. Since when are you a survival expert? Since I've been camping with Happy for years, Metalhead. Their bickering continued as Naruto and Wendy moved to a flat rock outcropping overlooking the valley. The sunset painted the landscape in shades of amber and gold, the first stars appearing in the deepening blue above. This reminds me of training with Grandini, Wendy said, settling cross-legged on the stone. We always practiced breathing techniques at dusk and dawn, when the air is in transition. Naruto sat facing her, mimicking her posture. So what exactly are we doing here? Dragon breath is the foundation of all dragon magic, Wendy explained, her voice taking on a teacher's patience. For dragon slayers, it's the first skill we learn. For you, she hesitated. I think it might help regulate Acnologia's chakra flow through your system. I'm willing to try anything at this point, Naruto admitted, the constant burn of the seal a persistent distraction throughout their day's travel. Close your eyes, Wendy instructed. First, become aware of your natural breath. Don't change it, just notice it. Naruto complied, focusing on the rhythm of air entering and leaving his lungs. After several minutes of this observation, Wendy's voice guided him deeper. Now, imagine your breath reaching all the way down to your seal. With each inhale, visualize clean air flowing around Acnologia's energy, not fighting it but embracing it. The visualization was surprisingly effective. As Naruto directed his attention to the seal, he found he could sense the boundaries between his chakra and the dragon's more clearly. Acnologia's power pulsed like a second heartbeat, dark and ancient. When dragons breathe, Wendy continued, her voice lowering hypnotically, they don't just take in air. They absorb the essence of their element. For sky dragons, it's the freedom of open spaces. For you in Acnologia, it might be something different. Destruction, Naruto murmured, the word rising unbidden from his connection with the sealed dragon. Acnologia is the dragon of apocalypse. His element is endings. Rather than being disturbed by this revelation, Wendy nodded encouragingly. Then breathe with that understanding. Endings make new beginnings possible. Destruction creates space for creation. Find the balance within that cycle. Following her guidance, Naruto began a measured breathing pattern. 4 counts in, hold for 7, release for 8. With each cycle, he visualized Acnologia's chaotic energy being channeled like a river between proper banks instead of flooding destructively through his system. To his surprise, the burning sensation in his seal gradually subsided, replaced by a steady warmth that felt almost companionable. I think it's working, he whispered, afraid to break the fragile harmony he'd established. Open your eyes, Wendy said softly. When Naruto looked down, he was startled to see a faint blue glow emanating from his seal, visible even through his shirt, but unlike the angry red chakra that typically leaked when Acnologia was active. This energy seemed controlled, almost peaceful. More surprising was Wendy's reaction. Her eyes were wide with wonder, a smile spreading across her face. Your chakra is beautiful when it's in harmony, she said, reaching out to place her palm against his stomach. I can sense both your energies coexisting instead of fighting. The innocent touch sent a different kind of warmth through Naruto. For a moment, they sat together in companionable silence, connected by this small miracle of balance. The moment was shattered by Sakura's urgent call from the campsite. Naruto, we've got company. In an instant, they were on their feet, rushing back to the others. A patrol of 4 cloud ninjas stood at the edge of their camp, headbands gleaming in the firelight. Tension radiated from both sides as Sakura stepped forward, diplomatic scroll in hand. We have authorization to cross cloud territory on a peacekeeping mission, she stated firmly. The lead ninja, a tall woman with braided hair, accepted the scroll with visible skepticism. Peacekeeping, is that what Konoha calls infiltrating our research facilities and sabotaging our security? We've done no such thing, Sakura replied. We're investigating the dimensional disturbances affecting all 5 nations. Convenient timing, the woman retorted, considering your village has been harboring these anomalies. She gestured dismissively toward Natsu and Gajiel, who bristled at the description. Who you calling an anomaly, lady? Gajiel growled, metal scales rippling across his forearms. Naruto stepped between them, hands raised placatingly. We're not looking for conflict. We just need information about 2 people who may have crossed into your territory, similar to my companions here. The Cloud Ninja exchanged meaningful glances. The Raikage has ordered all discussion of dimensional travelers restricted to authorized personnel only, the leader finally said. If you wish to proceed, you'll be escorted directly to Kumogakure for proper clearance. Sounds like a trap, Natsu muttered. Definitely a trap, Gajiel agreed. Sakura shot them a warning glare before turning back to the patrol. We accept your escort. Lead the way. As the group gathered their belongings, Naruto noticed Wendy's troubled expression. What's wrong? He asked quietly. There's something they're not telling us, she whispered. I can sense Gray's ice magic faintly on them, like they've been near him recently. Then we play along, Naruto decided. For now, the cloud escort led them through moonlit forests toward the mountain, in ranges that marked the heart of Lightning Country. Throughout the night journey, Naruto remained close to Wendy, noting how the breathing techniques she'd taught him continued to maintain the Unasu Al harmony with Acnologia's sealed power. By dawn, the forests had given way to rocky terrain and switchback trails leading ever upward. Cloud Country's perpetual storms gathered in the distance, TNING occasionally illuminating the massive plateau where Kumogakure perched among the peaks. We're not going to the village, Wendy observed as their guides veered onto a less traveled path. They're taking us somewhere else. Sure enough, the trail descended into a narrow canyon where a utilitarian compound had been built into the mountain face. Armed guards patrolled steel walkways while light, Ning-based barrier jutsu shimmered around the perimeter. A research facility, Sakura confirmed under her breath. Specialized for containing subjects with unique abilities. Containing, Natsu repeated, his usual boisterous demeanor replaced by cold anger. You mean imprisoning our friends? Their escort stopped before massive steel doors emblazoned with the cloud symbol. The commander will process your diplomatic credentials here. Weapons will be temporarily surrendered before entry. Not happening, Gajil said flatly. The lead cloud ninja smiled thinly. Then you'll remain outside while your companions proceed. The Raikage's orders regarding security are non-negotiable. After a tense discussion, they reached a compromise. Natsu and Gajil would remain outside with two of the escort ninja while Naruto, Wendy, and Sakura entered the facility. The arrangement was far from ideal, but it allowed them to gather intelligence while maintaining the pretense of diplomatic cooperation. If we're not out in 2 hours, Naruto told the Dragon Slayers as they surrendered their visible weapons, burn this place to the ground. Natsu cracked his knuckles with grim satisfaction. With pleasure. The interior of the compound reminded Naruto of Konoha's intelligence division, sterile corridors, reinforced doors, and the distinctive hum of chakra suppression fields. Their remaining escorts led them to a Spartan meeting room where a broad-shouldered man with a lightning-shaped scar across his face awaited them. I am Commander Yokai, he announced without preamble. You claim to be investigating dimensional anomalies. Explain your specific interest in Cloud Country's research. Sakura handled the diplomatic niceties while Naruto scanned their surroundings, noting surveillance camera and subtle barrier jutsu embedded in the walls. Beside him, Wendy had gone very still, her attention fixed on something beyond normal perception. They're below us, she whispered, barely audible. Gray and Urza, I can feel their magical signatures. Naruto gave a nearly imperceptible nod, maintaining his neutral expression while Sakura continued negotiating for information. The commander remained evasive, acknowledging only that certain individuals with unusual abilities had been detained for security reasons. We understand your caution, Sakura said smoothly, but these individuals are key to understanding the rifts. If we could speak with them, impossible, Commander Yokai interrupted. The subjects are undergoing specialized analysis. They're not subjects, Wendy said suddenly, her quiet voice carrying unexpected authority. They're people, my friends. The commander's expression hardened. Your friends caused significant damage to cloud infrastructure. The ice user froze an entire outpost solid, and the woman in armor decimated a containment squad. Because you attacked them first, Naruto guessed, reading between the lines. A tense silence filled the room, broken only when an aide hurried in to whisper urgently in the commander's ear. Whatever news was delivered caused Yokai's face to drain of color. Excuse me, he said abruptly, striding from the room. Wait here under guard. The moment the door closed behind him, Naruto turned to Wendy. How precise is your sensing ability? Can you locate exactly where they're being held? 2 levels down, she replied immediately. Eastern section. Gray's signature is weaker than it should be. They must be suppressing his magic somehow. Sakura moved to the door, pressing her ear against it. Something's happening. I hear alarms. Good timing, Naruto murmured. Reaching into his equipment pouch, he withdrew a small seal tag that had escaped the weapons check, one of Jiraiya's special creations designed to temporarily disrupt surveillance jutsu. With a swift movement, he activated the tag and slapped it against the wall. The surveillance cameras flickered and died. We have maybe 3 minutes before backup systems engage, he told the others. Let's move. Instead of trying the guarded door, Naruto focused his chakra into his hand, forming a swirling ball of energy. Rasengan, he whispered, driving it into the floor where Wendy had indicated their friends would be located. The reinforced concrete crumbled, creating a passage directly to the level below. Sakura dropped through first, her monstrous strength making quick work of 2 startled guards. Naruto followed with Wendy, supporting her as they landed in a sterile laboratory corridor. This way, Wendy urged, leading them toward a heavily secured door at the corridor's end. As they approached, the facility's alarms blared to life, red emergency lighting bathing the hallway in crimson. Sakura made short work of the locked door, her chakra-enhanced fist reducing it to splinters. Inside, they found a scene that made Naruto's blood boil. Gray Fullbuster lay strapped to an examination table, strange devices attached to his chest and forehead. Nearby, Urza Scarlet was contained in what appeared to be a specialized restraint chair, magical suppression lacrima embedded in the metal cuffs around her wrists and ankles. Both fairy tale Wiza RDS showed signs of experimentation, needle marks, monitoring equipment, and the glazed eyes of those kept under sedation. Gray, Urza, Wendy rushed forward, already summoning her healing magic. What have they done to you? Gray stirred at her voice, ice magic weakly forming around his hands despite the suppressors. Wendy, how? No time to explain, Naruto said, working to release Urza's restraints while Sakura handled Gray's. We need to move before I arrive. A new voice interrupted. Naruto turned to find a figure standing in the doorway, not Commander Yokai as expected, but a slender man with alabaster skin and eyes like polished obsidian. His robes, a deep midnight blue embroidered with silver constellations, marked him as no ordinary cloud ninja. Kuroshi, Gray spat name with a mixture of recognition and hatred. I should have known you'd be behind this. The man smiled, revealing teeth too perfect to be natural. Mr. Fullbuster, always so perceptive. Yes, I've been quite interested in studying your unique abilities. The way your ice magic manipulates molecular structures is fascinating. You're not Cloud, Naruto observed, noting subtle differences in the man's accent and bearing. Who are you really? Someone who exists in the spaces between, Kuroshi replied cryptically. I've had many names across many realms. In this one, I serve as the Cloud's special consultant on interdimensional phenomena. Recognition flickered through Naruto. You're with the Dragon Conclave. A crude organization with limited vision, Kuroshi dismissed. They seek to preserve dragon essence. I intend to transcend it entirely. During this exchange, Wendy had continued healing Gray and Urza, her magic gradually restoring their strength. Sakura positioned herself protectively before them, kunai drawn. Whatever you're planning, Naruto said, stepping forward to face Kuroshi directly, it ends here. The smile that spread across Kuroshi's face sent chills down Naruto's spine. On the contrary, Jinchuriki of Acnologia, it's only beginning. Thanks to your timely arrival, I now have all the elements I need. With blinding speed, Kuroshi formed a series of Han-D signs unlike any jutsu Naruto had seen, slamming his palm against the floor. Dimensional Arte. Convergence Gate. The air tore open, revealing one of the now familiar rifts, but this one pulsed with sickly purple energy rather than the usual blue. The laboratory equipment began to rattle, some pieces being pulled toward the swirling vortex. What have you done? Sakura demanded, bracing herself against the growing pull. Created a direct pathway between synchronized points in our worlds, Kuroshi answered, seemingly unaffected by the rift's gravity. A feat only possible with the right catalysts. His gaze shifted meaningfully to Naruto and Wendy. Dragon vessels of opposite natures, present simultaneously. Understanding dawned on Naruto with horrifying clarity. You've been manipulating everything. The timing of the rifts. The cloud's capture of fairy tale wizards, all to draw us here together. Your perception does you credit, Jinchuriki. Kuroshi made another series of signs. Now, let's see what happens when Black Dragon meets Sky Dragon in the void between worlds. The floor beneath Naruto and Wendy suddenly liquefied, transforming into a quicksand-like substance that pulled them toward the rift. Naruto grabbed for Wendy's hand, catching her fingers as they both struggled against the inexorable force. Naruto! Sakura shouted, lunging toward them only to be repelled by an invisible barrier. Get Gray and Urza out of here, Naruto commanded, feeling Wendy's grip beginning to slip from his. Find Natsu and Gajeel. The last thing he saw before the rift engulfed them. As Urza breaking free of her remaining restraints, a sword materializing in her hand as she charged toward Kuroshi. Then everything dissolved into chaotic light and the sensation of falling through endless space. Consciousness returned gradually, accompanied by the taste of ash and the sound of waves. Naruto opened his eyes to an alien sky, deep indigo streaked with ribbons of luminescent blue. No sun or moon visible despite the ambient light illuminating the landscape. He lay on a gray beach, coarse sand made of what appeared to be crushed crystal rather than eroded stone. The waves that lapped at the shore glowed with bioluminescent creatures, casting eerie light across the alien terrain. Wendy, he called, sitting up despite the protest of bruised muscles. Wendy, here, came the weak reply. She lay several yards away, half concealed by strange crystalline formations that resembled trees without leaves. Naruto rushed to her side, relief washing through him at finding her conscious, if disoriented. "Are you hurt?" he asked, helping her to a sitting position. Wendy shook her head, blue hair matted with crystal dust. "Just drained. That portal, it felt like it was feeding on our magic." She looked around at their surroundings. "Where are we? Not in either of our worlds, I think." Naruto helped her stand, supporting her weight when she swayed slightly. Kuroshi called it the void between worlds. They stood together on the alien beach, surveying a landscape that defied conventional description. Beyond the crystal forest stretched plains of what appeared to be liquid metal, reflecting the strange sky in perfect mimicry. Distant mountains floated disconnected from the ground, suspended in midair as if gravity were optional rather than mandatory. "The dimensional nexus," Wendy breathed, recognition in her voice. Grandini told stories about this place, where realities overlap and the normal laws of nature don't apply. "You've heard of it," she nodded slowly. "It's said to be the original home of dragons before they dispersed to various worlds. No human was ever meant to survive here." As if in response to her words, the ground trembled beneath their feet. In the distance, across the liquid metal plains, massive shapes moved with deliberate purpose, too far to identify clearly, but unmistakably alive and enormous. Within Naruto's seal, Acnologia surged with sudden, desperate energy. Home, the dragon's thought reverberated through his consciousness. The first realm. The sensation was so powerful that Naruto staggered, clutching his stomach. The seal burned with unprecedented intensity. "Acnologia recognizes this place," he gasped. "He's excited." Wendy placed a steadying hand on his arm, her healing magic automatically flowing to ease his discomfort. "This is dangerous for you," she said, concern evident. "If Acnologia has a connection to this realm, the seal might be weaker here." Before Naruto could respond, movement caught high. A ripple in the air about 50 yards down the beach, similar to the dimensional rifts but smaller, more controlled. From within it stepped a familiar figure. "Ah, you've both survived the transition. Excellent." Kuroshi approached them with the casual confidence of someone strolling through a park rather than an interdimensional wasteland. "How do you like the ancestral realm? Impressive, isn't it? You tricked us," Naruto accused, positioning himself protectively before Wendy despite her whispered protest. "What do you want from us?" Kuroshi spread his hands in a gesture of apparent openness. "To make history, or rather, to rewrite it." He gazed appreciatively at the alien landscape. "Do you realize what this place represents? The nexus from which all worlds were born. The dragons understood its power. They were its first children, able to traverse realities at will. Until they were bound to individual worlds," Wendy added, earning a pleased nod from Kuroshi. The young sky maiden understands. "Yes, the dragons were eventually confined to separate realities, Earthland, the elemental nations, and countless others. Their powers diminished, their connections to this realm severed." His obsidian eyes gleamed with fanatical light. "But not completely, not irreversibly." Naruto felt Acnologia's presence pushing against the seal with increasing force, drawn towards something in this realm that called to the dragon's primal nature. "You're trying to restore dragons to their original power." "I seek to become what dragons once were," Kuroshi corrected. "And you two are the key ingredients. The Jinchuriki of the Black Dragon and the Chosen of the Sky Dragon, destruction and creation, ending and beginning. The perfect catalysts for my ascension." He raised his hand, revealing an amulet that pulsed with the same sickly purple energy as the rift that had brought them here. "This talisman has absorbed enough dimensional energy to begin the process. All it requires now is essence of opposing dragon natures to complete the transformation." "We won't help you," Wendy stated firmly, stepping beside Naruto rather than remaining behind him. "Whatever you're planning, it violates the natural order." Kuroshi's pleasant demeanor cracked slightly, irritation flickering across his perfect features. "The natural order is a myth perpetuated by those who fear true power. Dragons themselves disrupted it when they scattered across dimensions." While he spoke, Naruto surreptitiously scanned their surroundings, looking for any potential escape route. The rift Kuroshi had emerged from remained visible, a shimmer in the air like heat waves rising from summer pavement. "If they could reach it, I had hoped for your willing participation," Kuroshi continued, noting Naruto's wandering attention. But it isn't strictly necessary. With startling speed, he closed the distance between them, the amulet extended before him. As it neared, Naruto felt Acnologia's chakra responding, drawn inexorably toward the artifact. Beside him, Wendy gasped, her own dragon magic visibly manifesting as pale blue wisps that the amulet began to absorb. "Stop," she cried, trying to step back only to find herself unable to break the connection. Instinctively, Naruto reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers as they had during the battle with the conclave. The moment their skin touched, something unexpected happened. Rather than being drawn into Kuroshi's amulet individually, their dragon energies synchronized once more, black and sky blue swirling together in harmonious counterpoint. The combined power formed a protective barrier around them, resisting the amulet's pull. Kuroshi's expression shifted from confidence to confusion. "Impossible," he muttered. "The energies should be opposing, not complementary." Naruto felt strength flowing between himself and Wendy, their linked hands the conduit for something greater than either could produce alone. Within his mindscape, Acnologia's presence expanded but didn't overwhelm, balanced by Wendy's sky dragon essence. "The breathing technique," Wendy whispered urgently. "Use it now, Naruto." Understanding instantly, Naruto synchronized his breathing with hers, the pattern she had taught him on the rock outcropping. 4 counts in, hold for 7, release for 8. As they breathed together, their merged dragon power stabilized further, the protective barrier solidifying around them. Kuroshi stumbled back, the amulet now glowing an angry red as it failed to absorb their combined essence. "No, the polarities must remain separate for the transformation. Looks like your calculation was off," Naruto said, a grim smile forming as he felt unprecedented control over Acnologia's power. "Ready, Wendy," she nodded, determination hardening her delicate features. "Sky dragons, black dragons," Naruto continued, feeling Acnologia's power answering his call without the usual resistance. "Roar." They finished in unison. The combined breath attack erupted from them in a tornado of midnight blue energy streaked with stars, Acnologia's destructive force perfectly balanced by Wendy's healing sky essence. It struck Kuroshi square in the chest, sending him flying backward across the crystalline beach. The amulet flew from his grasp, landing in the strange bioluminescent water where it sizzled and began to melt. "No." Kuroshi scrambled toward the shoreline, desperation replacing his earlier composure. "Do you realize what you've done? Years of preparation, ruined." But before he could retrieve the artifact, liquid metal planes beyond the beach began to ripple violently. The massive shapes Naruto had noticed earlier were moving toward them with alarming speed, and growing clearer with each passing moment. Dragons. Dozens of them, in shapes and colors beyond anything described in either of their world's legends. Some appeared composed of living crystal, others of pure energy or impossible geometries. That hurt the human eye to observe directly. "The ancients," Kuroshi whispered, his anger transforming instantly to reverence. "They've awakened." Naruto felt Acnologia's presence surge with recognition and fear. The emotion was so foreign to the Apocalypse Dragon that Naruto nearly missed it. "We must leave," Acnologia's thought thundered through him. "Now, before they reach us." "The rift," Naruto urged, pulling Wendy toward the shimmering distortion Kuroshi had entered through. "We need to go before those dragons arrive." Wendy nodded, but cast a worried glance at Kuroshi, who remained Rands fixed by the approaching ancient dragons. "What about him?" "Leave him," Naruto decided, the unusual certainty coming from Acnologia's desperate need to escape this realm. "This place will deal with him better than we could." As they raced toward the rift, Kuroshi seemed to snap from his trance, noticing their escape attempt. "Wait, you can't leave me here. They'll..." His words cut off as the nearest of the ancient dragons reached the shore, its presence so vast that it seemed to distort the very fabric of the nexus around it. A sound beyond description, part thought, part vibration, emanated from the creature, affecting Naruto on a cellular level. "Hurry," he urged, practically lifting Wendy as they reached the rift. With a final desperate lunge, they threw themselves into the shimmering distortion. Kuroshi's scream echoing behind them as the ancient dragons converged on the beach. The journey back was less chaotic than their arrival, but still disorienting, a kaleidoscope of fracture. D-realities flashing past as they tumbled through dimensional space. Naruto maintained his grip on Wendy's hand throughout, their synchronized dragon energies providing some protection against the void's natural hostility toward human life. They emerged with bone-jarring force onto solid ground, rolling across what felt like stone flooring before coming to a stop against a wall. For several moments, they lay there breathing heavily, reassuring themselves that they had survived. "Are you okay?" Naruto finally asked, pushing himself to his knees. Wendy nodded weakly, her magical energy clearly depleted. "Where are we now?" As their vision cleared, they found themselves in what appeared to be an ancient temple, massive stone columns supporting a partially collapsed ceiling, walls covered in athered murals depicting beings that could only be dragons interacting with early humans. "Back in my world, I think," Naruto said, recognizing the architectural style as similar to ruins he'd encountered during missions in the Land of Iron. "But not where we started." "The Temple of Convergence," a new voice announced. They turned to find a white-haired man observing them from the shadows, not Kuroshi, but someone equally out of place in the ancient ruins. He wore scholarly robes and carried a staff topped with a clear crystal that emitted soft light. "Who are you?" Naruto demanded, instantly on guard. "A researcher. Like your friend Kuroshi, though with more patience and less ambition." The man approached slowly, hands raised to show he meant no harm. "My name is Shiro. I've studied the dimensional rifts for 30 years. You know Kuroshi?" Wendy asked, accepting Naruto's help to stand. Shiro's expression soured slightly. "He was my student, once. Before his obsession with Dragon Ascension consumed him." His gaze sharpened with interest. "You've been to the Nexus and returned. Very few can claim that distinction." "Not by choice," Naruto said. "And we left Kuroshi there with some very large, very ancient dragons." A complex emotion crossed Shiro's face, relief tinged with sadness. "Then perhaps that chapter is closed." He gestured to the murals surrounding them. "This temple was built by those who witnessed the first dragon crossings between dimensions. They recorded what they saw as warnings for future generations." Now that Naruto looked more closely, he could see that the murals told a sequential story. Early panels showed magnificent dragons teaching humans, sharing knowledge and power. Later scenes depicted conflict, dragons fighting among themselves, rifts opening between worlds. The final mural, partially destroyed by time, seemed to show a cataclysmic event with dragons being sealed or banished. "The dimensional barriers were created deliberately," Shiro explained, following their gaze, "to prevent a war that would have destroyed all realms. Each world received certain dragons, and the pathways between were sealed by the combined efforts of the wisest dragons and humans. But now those barriers are failing," Wendy said, understanding dawning in her voice. "That's what's causing the rifts." Shiro nodded gravely. Kuroshi discovered how to weaken THM further by harvesting dimensional energy. He believed that by absorbing enough dragon essence from both worlds, he could transform himself into a being capable of ruling the Nexus itself. "Well, he's got his wish to be with dragons now," Naruto remarked grimly, remembering the ancient beings converging on the beach. "But what about the rifts? Will they close now that he's gone?" The scholar's expression grew troubled. "I fear not. The damage has been done. The barriers will continue to weaken unless they're reinforced." "How?" Wendy asked. Before Shiro could answer, the temple shuddered violently. Dust and small stones rained from the ceiling as a familiar purple energy began to coalesce in the center of the chamber. "He's returning," Shiro whispered, horror evident in his voice. "Impossible. The ancients should have." The dimensional rift tore open with explosive force, knocking all three of them backward. From within its swirling depths emerged a figure, but not the Kuroshi they had left behind. This being retained Kuroshi's general form but appeared partially transformed, scales of midnight blue and silver covering portions of his skin, one eye human while the other had become a reptilian slit of molten gold. The ancients were most accommodating. Kuroshi's voice resonated with newfound power, a second, deeper tone underlying his human speech. They remembered the taste of human ambition. It amused them to grant a portion of what I sought. "You made a deal with them," Shiro realized, clutching his staff defensively. "A bargain," Kuroshi corrected, flexing a hand that now ended in taloned fingers. "My service as their agent in these realms, in exchange for enhancements." his partially transformed gaze fixed on Naruto and Wendy, who had instinctively moved closer together, hands nearly touching. And my first task is to harvest the dragon vessels who defied me. The symmetry is pleasing. Naruto reached for Acnologia's power, prepared to defend them both, but found the dragon's presence unusually subdued, as if retreating from something it recognized as superior. The black dragon knows better than to challenge the will of the ancients, Kuroshi observed with cruel amusement. As for you, Sky Maiden, your dragon abandoned you long ago. Who will protect you now? I will. The voice came from the temple entrance, where Natsu Dragneel stood silhouetted against the daylight. Flames already engulfing his fists. Behind him, Grey Fullbuster and Urza Scarlet flanked a contingent of Konoha ninja led by Kakashi and Sakura. Seems like we missed quite the adventure, Kakashi remarked casually. Though his exposed eye assessed the partially transformed Kuroshi with deadly seriousness. You found us, Wendy said, relief evident in her voice. Grey nodded, ice gathering around his hands. Urza sensed a massive magical disturbance centered on this location. We figured you'd be in the middle of it somehow. Always am, Naruto acknowledged with a grim smile. Kuroshi surveyed the newcomers with dismissive confidence. More witnesses to the dawning of a new age. How fitting. Without warning, he launched himself toward Naruto and Wendy with inhuman speed, taloned hand extended to seize them. Kakashi intercepted with a lightning-quick substitution jutsu, replacing their bodies with stone fragments that crumbled in Kuroshi's grasp. The battle erupted AC. Ross the ancient temple. Natsu and Grey attacking in tandem with fire and ice, Urza re-equipping into her Heaven's Wheel armor to send a dozen swords flying toward the transformed researcher. Konoha Ninja, as provided support with a barrage of coordinated jutsu. Yet Kuroshi seemed to anticipate each attack, moving with fluid grace that belied his partially transformed state. Purple energy crackled around him as he drew power directly from the still open rift, using it to deflect or absorb their most powerful techniques. He's connected to the rift, Shiro shouted over the chaos. You must close it to weaken him. Sakura appeared beside Naruto and Wendy, who had taken shelter behind a fallen column. How do we close an interdimensional tear? She demanded. Wendy's expression shifted as realization dawned. The same way Grandini taught me to heal torn tissue, she said slowly. With sky magic to bridge the gap and guide the natural healing process. But amplified, Naruto added, following her logic. Using our combined dragon energies like we did in the Nexus. It could work, Shiro confirmed, joining their impromptu council. The harmonization of opposing dragon natures might provide enough balanced energy to reinforce the barrier. We'll need time, Wendy cautioned. And I'll need to be closer to the rift. Sakura nodded decisively. We'll give you that time. With remarkable coordination, the combined forces of Fairy Tail and Konoha adjusted their strategy, focusing on containing Kuroshi rather than defeating him outright. Kakashi used Earth-style jutsu to raise Stone Bari. Urza channeling Kuroshi's movement away from the rift. Urza and Grey created diversions at critical moments, while Natsu's overwhelming offensive pressure kept the transformed man constantly defensive. Now, Sakura signaled, creating an opening with her monstrous strength by shattering the floor beneath Kuroshi's feet. Naruto and Wendy raced toward the pulsing rift, placing themselves directly BEF. Or it as their companions maintained the distraction. Standing back to back, they joined hands and began the breathing technique that had served them in the Nexus. Focus on the edges, Wendy instructed. Her sky magic manifesting as a gentle blue aura. Visualize them knitting together, healing the tear in reality. Naruto closed his eyes, reaching within for Acnologia's power. To his surprise, the dragon responded without resistance. Perhaps understanding the greater threat that Kuroshi and the weakened barriers represented. Together, they breathed in perfect synchronization. 4 counts in, hold for 7, release for 8. With each cycle, their respective dragon energies merged more completely, forming a unique power that was neither destructive nor healing but something transcendent. The rift began to respond, its violent pulsing gradually stabilizing as their combined energy surrounded its edges, providing a framework for the natural barriers to regenerate. It's working, Shiro confirmed. Watching in scholarly fascination, the dimensional frequency is normalizing. Kuroshi noticed too late what they were attempting. With a roar of fury, more dragon than human, he broke free from his attackers. lunging toward Naruto and Wendy with desperate speed. You will not undo what I've accomplished. But before he could reach them, something unexpected happened. The partially closed rift suddenly expanded, as if responding to his presence. Tendrils of energy lashed out, wrapping around Kuroshi's transformed limbs. No, he cried, genuine fear replacing anger. They promised me freedom to move between realms. The ancients have reconsidered your bargain, Shiro stated calmly. It seems they prefer you return to them. The rift pulled Kuroshi inexorably backward despite his struggles. As he was dragged into the swirling vortex, his partially transformed features contorted with rage and betrayal. This isn't over. The barriers will continue to weaken. I am only the first to walk the dragon path. With those ominous words, he disappeared into the rift, which contracted violently before sealing itself with a thunderous implosion that shook the ancient temple to its foundations. In the sudden silence that followed, Naruto and Wendy remained connected, their merged dragon energy gradually dispersing as they processed what had occurred. Around them, their friends approached cautiously, equally stunned by the dramatic conclusion. Is he gone? Sakura asked finally. For now, Shiro answered, leaning heavily on his staff. The ancients have reclaimed their errant servant. But his final words carried truth. This rift may be sealed, but others will continue to appear as the dimensional barriers weaken. Exhaustion finally caught up with Wendy, her knees buckling as her magical energy depleted. Naruto caught her before she could fall, lifting her easily into his arms. The protective gesture felt natural, earned through their shared ordeal. You did it, he told her softly. Genuine admiration in his voice. Your sky magic saved us all. A tired smile touched her lips. We did it together. Black Dragon and Sky Dragon in harmony. As their companions gathered around with questions and concerns, Naruto found himself reluctant to release Wendy from his protective embrace. In the chaos of dimensional travel, ancient dragons, and partially transformed enemies, one truth had crystallized with unexpected clarity: his connection to the young Sky Dragon Slayer had become something precious, something he wasn't prepared to lose when the rifts eventually closed. Within his seal, Acnologia's presence had settled into unusual tranquility, as if the Black Dragon too had found something valuable in their synchronized harmony. The irony wasn't lost on Naruto, that, in helping to heal the tear between worlds, he and Wendy had created a bond that transcended those very same boundaries. Chapter 2 End. Chapter 3. Worlds Asunder. Dawn painted Konoha's horizon in shades of gold and crimson. But Naruto Uzumaki saw none of it. 3 days had passed since their return from the ancient temple, and for 3 days he had searched without rest. The dimensional rifts had multiplied across the 5 nations, appearing and disappearing with increasing frequency, and in one of them, Wendy had vanished. He stood now atop the Hokage monument, eyes red-rimmed from exhaustion as he scanned the village below. Teams of ninja and fairy tale wizards moved with coordinated purpose, tracking rift energy and establishing containment protocols where dimensional tiers threatened civilian areas. The alliance born of necessity had proven surprisingly effective, Dragon Slayer magic complementing ninja techniques in ways that strengthened both. But none of that mattered to Naruto. Not when Wendy remained missing. You need rest, Sakura said, appearing beside him with characteristic silence. Running yourself into the ground won't help find her. I can't sleep, Naruto replied, voice rough from disuse. Every time I close my eyes, I see her falling through that rift. I should have been faster. Should have grabbed her hand before. Stop. Sakura's tone brooked no argument. What happened wasn't your fault. The rift appeared directly beneath her. No one could have reacted in time. Logic did nothing to ease the hollow ache in his chest. In the days since their battle with Kuroshi, something fundamental had shifted in Naruto's understanding of himself, and at the center of that transformation was Wendy Marvell, the small dragon slayer who had somehow balanced the chaos within him. Without her, the seal burned constantly. Acnologia's presence pushed against his consciousness with growing insistence, the dragon's thoughts becoming clearer, more articulate in Naruto's mind. Find her, the dragon demanded regularly. The Sky Maiden belongs with us. The possessive nature of Acnologia's interest in Wendy should have disturbed Naruto more than it did. Instead, He found himself in rare agreement with the sealed beast. Wendy belonged with them, her sky magic the perfect counterbalance to Acnologia's destructive nature. Lady Tsunade wants to see you, Sakura continued when Naruto remained silent. Apparently the research teams have made a breakthrough understanding the rift patterns. Hope flickered briefly in Naruto's exhausted mind. Did they find her? Not exactly, but they might know where to look. The Hokage's office had been transformed into a war room of sorts. Maps covered every surface, marked with red pins indicating rift appearances. Tsunade stood amid the controlled chaos, conferring with an unlikely pair, Levi Magarden of Fairy Tale, whose script magic had proven invaluable in translating ancient texts, and Shikamaru Nara, whose street Raitagic mind naturally complemented her scholarly approach. There you are, Tsunade greeted Naruto without preamble. You look terrible. Thanks, he replied dryly. Sakura mentioned a breakthrough. Levi nodded, blue hair bobbing as she gestured to a complex array of symbols spread across Tsunade's desk. We've been analyzing the dimensional frequency of each rift. They're not random at all. You're following a pattern based on dragon energy resonance. Which means, Naruto prompted, too exhausted for academic theorizing. Which means, Shikamaru interjected, the rifts are attracted to concentrations of dragon power. The stronger the dragon essence, the more likely a rift will open nearby. Understanding dawned slowly through Naruto's fatigue. That's why Wendy disappeared. Her sky dragon magic drew the rift directly to her. Exactly, Levi confirmed. And based on our calculations, we believe she was pulled to the location in her world with the strongest corresponding dragon energy. The dragon graveyard, said a gravelly voice from the doorway. They turned to find Gajeel leaning against the frame, arms crossed over his chest. The Iron Dragon Slayer's perpetual scowl had deepened during their days in the ninja world, his concern for his guildmates manifesting as intensified gruffness. It's where dragons from Earthland went to die, he elaborated. Place is saturated with residual dragon magic. If rifts are drawn to dragon power, that's where she'd end up. Hope and dread warred within Naruto. Can we open a rift to this graveyard intentionally? That's the tricky part, Levi admitted. Opening rifts deliberately requires enormous energy and precision we don't yet have. But, she hesitated, glancing at Tsunade. But what? Naruto demanded. Tsunade sighed, meeting his gaze directly. But we might be able to use your seal to create a controlled tear. Acnologia's connection to the dragon realm could serve as an anchor point. The implications hung heavy in the air. Using Acnologia's power on such a scale would mean loosening the seal significantly, perhaps more than ever before. The risk of losing control, of the dragon's consciousness overwhelming his own, was substantial. I'll do it, Naruto said without hesitation. Not so fast, Tsunade cautioned. There's something else you need to know. The barrier between worlds is continuing to weaken. Each new rift accelerates the degradation. If this continues unchecked, both worlds will eventually collapse into each other, Shikamaru finished. Complete dimensional convergence, which would be bad, Gajeel added unnecessarily. Naruto processed this information with growing unease. How long do we have? Days, maybe. A week at most. Levi's expression was grim. The rifts are appearing more frequently and remaining open longer. It's only a matter of time before the barrier fails completely. Then we don't have a choice, Naruto concluded. We find Wendy, bring her back, and figure out how to strengthen the dimensional walls like we did at the temple. There's one more complication, Tsunade said reluctantly. The Cloud Village is mobilizing. They believe these rifts are a Konoha weapon. Especially after discovering Kuroshi's laboratory and his connection to the Dragon Conclave. The Raikage is demanding we turn over all dimensional refugees immediately or face military action. That's not happening, Naruto stated flatly. Obviously, Tsunade agreed, but it means we're operating under multiple constraints. Find Wendy, repair the dimensional barrier, prevent an inter-village war, all while keeping Acnologia contained. Her amber eyes held a mixture of concern and confidence as they rested on her most unpredictable ninja. Think you can handle that, brat? Despite everything, Naruto felt a small smile touch his lips. Just another Tuesday in Konoha. The cave system beneath the Hokage monument had rarely been used since the village's founding, a network of natural sea hambers enhanced with ancient sealing techniques for containing chakra experiments too dangerous for populated areas. Now it hummed with activity as ninja and wizards prepared for the most ambitious dimensional working yet attempted. At the center of the largest chamber, Fairy Tail's Master Makarov, who had arrived through a rift the previous day, conferred with Konoha's sealing experts. Despite his diminutive stature, the elderly wizard commanded respect through sheer magical presence, his knowledge of barrier techniques proving invaluable to their preparations. The principle is sound, he told Tsunade, examining the complex array of seals spreading across the chamber floor. But containing the backlash will require precise timing. Too soon, and the rift won't fully form. Too late, he shrugged expressively, and we all get pulled into the void between worlds, finished Urza Scarlet, who had appointed herself security coordinator for the operation. Most unpleasant. Naruto sat cross-legged at the array's center, eyes closed as he worked through Wendy's dragon breathing techniques. The past days of separation had given him new appreciation for what she had taught him, without her calming presence. Maintaining harmony with Acnologia's sealed power required constant vigilance. Within his mindscape, the black dragon's presence had grown more defined, more articulate. Where once Naruto had sensed only primal emotions and fractured thoughts from his sealed tenant, now he perceived something approaching coherent consciousness. They fear what will happen when you loosen the seal, Acnologia observed. The mental voice resonating with ancient power. As they should. I won't let you take control, Naruto replied internally. This is about finding Wendy, nothing more. Sensa. Chion akin to dark amusement rippled through their connection. The Sky Maiden is important to us both, though for different reasons. I will cooperate, for now. The conditional nature of that cooperation wasn't lost on Naruto. But he had no alternative. Without Acnologia's willing participation, creating a targeted rift would be impossible. We're ready to begin, Kakashi announced, interrupting Naruto's internal dialogue. His former teacher had abandoned his usual casual demeanor, Sharingan exposed and focused intently on the seal array. Remember the sequence we discussed. Partial release only, enough to create the rift, not enough to compromise your control. Naruto nodded, rising to his feet at the array's center. Around him, a protective barrier of ninja and wizards had formed, Sakura and Natsu stationed closest. Ready to intervene if Acnologia's influence became too strong. Good luck, kid, Gajeel grunted from his position near the chamber entrance. Bring our Sky Maiden back in one piece. Drawing a deep breath, Naruto placed his hands together in the first of a complex sequence of seals. As his fingers moved through the patterns, he felt Acnologia's chakra responding, rising through his system like dark tide. 8 trigrams seal. Measured release, he intoned, pressing his palm against his stomach where the containment formula marked his skin. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. Acnologia's chakra surged through him with the force of a breaking dam, black energy crackling across his skin in patterns reminiscent of dragon scales. The seal array beneath his feet ignited in response. Channels of chakra-infused ink glowing brilliant blue against the stone floor. For one terrifying moment, Naruto felt his consciousness being pushed aside as Acnologia's presa. NCE expanded into the space created by the loosened seal. The dragon's ancient awareness pressed against his thoughts, hungry for control after years of confinement. Let me through, the dragon demanded. I can find her more efficiently than you. No, Naruto gasped aloud, fighting to maintain dominance over his own body. We do this together or not at all. To his surprise, the pressure relented slightly, not retreating, but no longer actively attempting to overwhelm him. It seemed Acnologia's desire to locate Wendy outweighed, temporarily at least, his desire for freedom. With this uneasy equilibrium established, Naruto refocused on the dimensional working. Drawing on Acnologia's power in greater measure than ever before, he channeled it through the seal array, visualizing the dragon GR. Aviard as Gajeel had described it, a desolate valley filled with the massive skeletal remains of ancient dragons, saturated with residual magical energy. Focus on Wendy's magical signature, Master Makarov instructed. His own considerable power feeding into the array. Your connection to her will guide the rift formation. Naruto closed his eyes, summoning the memory of Wendy's sky magic, how it felt when their powers merged. The unique resonance they created together. Within his mindscape, Acnologia responded to the recollection, the dragon's consciousness providing additional focus as they searched across dimensional boundaries. The air before him began to shimmer, reality bending as the combined power of ninja sealing techniques and wizard barrier magic forced open a controlled tear between worlds. Unlike the chaotic rifts that had been appearing randomly, this opening formed with deliberate precision, edges stabilized by the surrounding array. Through the widening portal, a landscape gradually became visible, gray skies over a valley filled with enormous dragon bones, white against darkened earth. Magical energy pulsed visibly in the air, concentrated particularly around a center. Depression where the largest skeleton dominated the landscape. And there, tiny against the massive dragon remains, stood a familiar figure with blue hair. Wendy, Naruto breathed, relief crashing through him with physical force. She turned at the sound of his voice, carried across dimensional space by the rift. Her expression transformed from shock to desperate hope as she spotted him through the opening. "Naruto," she called, already running toward the rift. "You found me." But as she approached, Naruto noticed something was wrong. Wendy moved with unnatural difficulty, as if wading through invisible resistance. Behind her, the air darkened ominously, coalescing into a familiar purple energy. "Hurry," he shouted, extending his hand through the rift. "Something's coming." Wendy redoubled her efforts, reaching desperately for his outstretched fingers. But before their hands could touch, the darkness behind her took solid form. Kuroshi, or what remained of him after the ancients had reclaimed their servant. His transformation had progressed significantly since their last encounter. Where before he had shown only partial draconic features, now he appeared more dragon than human, scaled skin covering most of his body. Elongated face restructured with a reptilian snout, wings half-formed and twitching from his shoulders. "The vessels," he rasped, voice barely recognizable. "Together again as promised." With inhuman speed, he seized Wendy's ankle, halting her progress toward the rift. She cried out in pain as taloned fingers dug into her skin. "Let her go," Naruto roared, Acnologia's influence lending his voice a dual-toned quality that echoed through both dimensions. In response, Kuroshi's transformed visage split in a terrible approximation of a smile. "Come and take her, vessel of Acnologia. The ancients await your arrival." Understanding crashed through Naruto with sickening clarity. This had been a trap, not set by Kuroshi himself, but by the ancient dragons who now controlled him. They had allowed Wendy to be found, knowing Naruto would risk anything to reach her. Within his seal, Acnologia's consciousness roiled with conflicted impulses, rage at being manipulated. Fear of the ancients who had once banished him, and overwhelming desire to reclaim Wendy from their puppet. The last sentiment resonated too strongly with Naruto's own feelings to ignore. Without hesitation, he stepped fully into the rift. "Naruto, wait!" Kakashi's warning came too late. The moment Naruto crossed the dimensional threshold, the carefully controlled rift destabilized. The seal array beneath him fractured, sending feedback through the entire system. Behind him, he heard shouts of alarm as ninja and wizards scrambled to contain the backlash. But none of that mattered now. He was in the dragon graveyard, standing on Earthland soil for the first time, with Wendy just yards away in Kuroshi's grasp. "Let her go." Each word carried the weight of both his determination and Acnologia's fury. Kuroshi tilted his partly draconic head, studying Naruto with unsettling intensity. "The ancients underestimated your bond with the Sky Maiden." Fascinating. His grip on Wendy's ankle tightened, drawing a whimper of pain. "But ultimately irrelevant. You are both required for what comes next." Naruto advanced slowly, Acnologia's chakra manifesting more visibly with each step, a shroud of midnight blue energy that rippled with stars, reminiscent of their combined dragon roar in the Nexus. He could feel the seal stretched dangerously thin, Acnologia's consciousness pressing forward with growing insistence. "Release me fully," the dragon demanded. "Only my complete power can match what he has become." "I need Wendy first," Naruto countered internally. "Her sky magic to balance yours." The dragon's frustration was palpable, but he couldn't deny the logic. Their previous success against Kuroshi had come through the harmonization of opposing dragon natures, destruction and restoration in perfect balance. "You want both of us," Naruto called to Kuroshi, continuing his measured approach. "Then you deal with both our powers together." Kuroshi's transformed features registered surprise as Naruto suddenly accelerated. Body flicker technique carrying him forward with blinding speed. Before the dragon-human hybrid could react, Naruto drove a Rasengan directly into the arm holding Wendy. The spiraling chakra sphere, infused with Acnologia's power, tore through scaled flesh with devastating effect. Kuroshi released Wendy with a howl of pain, blackened blood spraying from the wounded limb. Naruto caught Wendy before she hit the ground, cradling her smaller form protectively against his chest. The moment they touched, he felt Acnologia's chakra respond, settling, focusing, no longer pushing so aggressively against the seal's constraints. "You came for me," Wendy whispered, wonder and gratitude mingling in her voice. "Always," Naruto promised, setting her gently on her feet, but maintaining a protective arm around her shoulders. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, though Naruto noted with concern how pale she appeared, magical energy clearly depleted. "He's been draining my power since I arrived, using it to speed his transformation." Kuroshi had recovered from the initial shock of Naruto's attack, his injured arm already regenerating with disturbing speed. The la energy surrounding him pulsed in time with the residual dragon magic saturating the graveyard. The vessels reunited, he observed, voice resonating with multiple tonal layers as his transformation continued to progress. "Perfect. The convergence can now proceed as planned." "What convergence?" Naruto demanded, maintaining his protective stance before Wendy. In response, Kuroshi spread his arms, one fully healed, the other still reforming, toward the sky. The clouds above the dragon graveyard began to swirl unnaturally, forming a massive vortex centered directly overhead. Through this atmospheric disturbance, the ninja world became visible like an inverted reflection, Konoha's distinctive landscape recognizable despite the dimensional distortion. "The final merging of realms," Kuroshi announced, voice carrying triumphant madness. "What the ancients have sought since their banishment, the dissolution of barriers that have kept dragons divided and diminished." "You can't," Wendy gasped, understanding the implications immediately. The sudden convergence of two fully formed dimensions would destroy both worlds. Billions would die in the cataclysm. A necessary sacrifice for dragon ascendancy, Kuroshi dismissed. From the ashes, a new combined world will emerge, one ruled by the ancients and those who serve them. His transformed gaze fixed on Naruto and Wendy with terrible purpose. "Your unified dragon energies are the key to controlled convergence. Together, you will ensure enough structure remains for the ancients to shape what follows." The sky continued to darken as the dimensional vortex expanded, revealing more of the ninja world above them. Lightning crackled between the realms, structures in both dimensions beginning to waver as reality itself became malleable at the convergence point. "We need to stop him," Naruto said urgently. "Like we did at the temple." Wendy nodded, though concern shadowed her features. "I don't have much magical energy left. He's been feeding on it for days." "Take some of mine," Naruto offered immediately. "Acnologia's chakra is overflowing right now. If you can convert it to sky magic, I can try." Determination hardened her delicate features as she placed her hands against his chest, directly over the seal. "But it's dangerous. Acnologia's essence was never meant to fuel sky dragon techniques." Within his mindscape, Naruto felt the sealed dragon's interest sharpen. "Let her try," Acnologia urged with unexpected eagerness. "The Sky Maiden's power complements my own." With silent agreement, Naruto relaxed his internal barriers slightly, allowing more of Acnologia's chakra to flow toward Wendy's touch. Her hands glowed with faint blue light as she attempted to filter and convert the dark dragon's energy into something her own magic could use. The process was visibly painful for her, face contorting with effort, small frame trembling as conflicting dragon essences fought for balance within her magical containers. But gradually, impossibly, the midnight blue of Acnologia's chakra began to lighten in her grasp, transformed by her innate sky magic into something usable. "It's working," she whispered, wonder overriding exhaustion. "I can feel my power returning." Kuroshi had not remained idle during this exchange. The draconic transformation accelerated as he channeled energy from the expanding dimensional rift, scales spreading completely across his form, wings extending to their full impressive span. What remained of his humanity disappeared beneath the final metamorphosis, a dragon hybrid of midnight blue and purple. Eyes burning with ancient intelligence. Vessels of opposing aspects, he growled, voice now fully inhuman. Surrender to your purpose. Never been good at surrendering, Naruto replied, feeling Wendy's strength returning through their connected energies. Ready, she nodded, releasing his chest to stand beside him, their shoulders touching as they faced Kuroshi together. Sky dragons, she began, gathering the converted energy. Black dragons, Naruto continued, Acnologia's power responding to his call with unprecedented cooperation. Roar. They finished in unison. The combi, Ned breath attack erupted from them with even greater force than in the Nexus, a tornado of perfectly balanced dragon energy that struck Kuroshi square in the chest. The hybrid creature roared in pain, as the harmonized magic tore through his transformed flesh, exposing the human core still present within the draconic exterior. But unlike their previous encounter, Kuroshi did not fall. The dimension, Al rift above pulsed in response to his distress, channeling additional energy directly into his wounded form. Before their eyes, the damage healed, scales regenerating with unnatural speed. The convergence has progressed too far. Kuroshi laughed, the sound horrible from his transformed throat. The ancients, power flows through both realms now. You cannot stop what has already begun. As if to emphasize his point, the ground beneath them shuddered violently. Across the dragon graveyard, massive skeletal remains began to stir, dragon bones animated by the convergence energy pouring from the rift above. This is bad, Naruto muttered, watching as draconic skeletons rose on impossible legs, empty eye sockets glowing with the same purple light that surrounded Kuroshi. They're being possessed by ancient dragon spirits. Wendy realized with horror, using the convergence to manifest in physical form. Kuroshi spread his wings with triumphant flourish. The vanguard arrives. Soon, the Ents themselves will cross the weakened barrier. The animated dragon skeletons converged on their position with surprising speed for such massive structures. Naruto created shadow clones to divert their attention while he and Wendy formulated a new strategy. We can't fight them all, he acknowledged, watching a clone disappear beneath massive bone claws. We need to close the rift like we did at the temple. Wendy's gaze traveled to the dimensional vortex overhead, where the two worlds hung in precarious proximity. It's too large now. We'd need to be at the center of the convergence to have any chance of sealing it. Naruto followed her gaze upward, an idea forming that was either brilliant or suicidal, possibly both. Then that's where we go. What? How? In response, Naruto closed his eyes, reaching deep into his connection with Acnologia. I need your wings, he told the sealed dragon. Just the wings, not complete transformation. The request was unprecedented in their contentious relationship. Never before had Naruto asked for partial manifestation of Acnologia's draconic form, always fearing such physical transformation might prove irreversible. To his surprise, the dragon responded with what felt like grudging respect. The Sky Maiden has taught you balance. Very well. Take what you need to reach the convergence. Chakra surged through Naruto's back, reshaping flesh and bone in burning waves of transformation. He gritted his teeth against the pain as massive wings erupted from his shoulder blades, scaled appendages of midnight blue that spread 20 feet from tip to tip, an echo of Acnologia's true form. Naruto, Wendy gasped, witnessing the partial transformation with wide eyes. It's still me, he assured her, flexing the new appendages experimentally. Acnologia's cooperating, for now. An animated dragon skeleton lunged toward them, jaws opening impossibly wide. Naruto swept Wendy into his arms and launched skyward with powerful strokes of his manifested wings. Narrowly avoiding the bony maw. Hold on tight, he instructed as they climbed rapidly toward the dimensional vortex. This might get rough. Below them, Kuroshi realized their intention. With a roar of fury, he launched himself into pursuit, newly formed wings carrying his transformed body with surprising agility. The animated skeletons followed more slowly, hindered by their incomplete forms and the limitations of bone without muscle. As they approached the center of the vortex, the air grew thick with dimensional energy, purple lightning cracking around them, reality itself seeming to bend and distort. Through the swirling clouds, Naruto could see the ninja world above with increasing clarity. Konoha's buildings, the Hokage monument, forests and training grounds, all wavering like reflections in disturbed water as the dimensions pressed against each other. There. Wendy pointed to the exact center of the convergence, where energy flowed most intensely between worlds. That's where we need to be. With powerful wing strokes, Naruto carried them into the heart of the dimensional storm. Lightning struck dangerously close, the air itself becoming difficult to breathe as EY reached the precise point where worlds collided. Now what? He shouted over the howling dimensional winds. Same as before, Wendy called back, arms wrapped tightly around his neck for stability. But bigger. We need to stabilize the barrier between worlds instead of just closing a single rift. Kuroshi had nearly reached them, his transformed body silhouetted against lightning flashes as he fought through the turbulence. You cannot undo the ancients, will. He roared. The convergence is destiny. Ignoring the hybrid's threats, Naruto and Wendy began the now familiar synchronization of their dragon energies. In the heart of the convergence, where dimensional forces pressed most intensely, their respective powers responded with unprecedented strength, Acnologia's destructive essence and Wendy's sky magic amplified by the very energies threatening to merge their worlds. 4 counts in, Wendy guided, initiating their dragon breathing technique. Hold for 7, release for 8, as they breathed together, suspended in the dimensional vortex, their combined dragon power manifested visually. A sphere of midnight blue streaked with celestial light surrounding them completely. With each cycle of breath, the sphere expanded outward, reinforcing the natural barrier between worlds that had been weakened by Kuroshi's manipulations. It's working, Wendy exclaimed as the violent dimensional winds began to subside, the wavering images of the ninja world stabilizing above them. But their success was far from assured. Kuroshi had reached the edge of their expanding energy sphere. Transformed claws tearing at the harmonized barrier with desperate fury. The ancients will not be denied their ascension. He shrieked, draconic features contorted with rage. I am their chosen instrument. Within the protective sphere, Naruto felt Acnologia's presence surge with unexpected emotion, not the usual destructive hunger, but something closer to indignation. The false dragon challenges my domain. The sealed beast growled within Naruto's consciousness. He is unworthy of ancients' favor. For once, Naruto found himself in complete agreement. Then let's show him what true dragon power looks like. Still holding Wendy securely with one arm, Naruto extended his free hand toward Kuroshi. Acnologia's chakra gathered in his palm, darker and more concentrated than ever before, but controlled. Focused by Wendy's stabilizing presence and the breathing techniques she had taught him. Black Dragon's destructive sphere, he intoned, the name rising instinctively from his connection with Acnologia. The compressed energy launched from his palm like a midnight comet, striking Kuroshi with pinpoint accuracy. Unlike their previous attacks, this one didn't attempt to harm the transformed body, instead. It targeted the parasitic connection between Kuroshi and the ancient dragons controlling him. The hybrid creature convulsed in midair as Acnologia's specialized attack disrupted the dimensional energy animating his transformation. Scales began to flake away like ash, wings deteriorating at the edges as the forced evolution reversed itself. No, Kuroshi wailed, voice shifting bedway. Human and draconic as his form destabilized. The ascension was promised. The ancients chose me. They used you, Naruto corrected grimly. Like they tried to use us. The reversal accelerated, Roshi's transformed body unraveling as the connection to the ancient dragons weakened. In desperate retaliation, he summoned the last of his borrowed power for one final lunge toward Naruto and Wendy's protective sphere. If I fall, you fall with me, he shrieked, claws extended for a death strike. But before he could reach them, a new player entered the dimensional battlefield. A massive shadow asked overhead as a familiar figure burst through the vortex from the ninja world above. Natsu Dragneel, carried by the blue exceed named Happy whom Naruto had met briefly after the fairy tale master's arrival. Fire Dragon's iron fist, Natsu roared, flames engulfing his arm as he dropped directly into Kuroshi's path. The impact was spectacular, fire magic meeting corrupted dragon energy in an explosion that lit up the dimensional vortex like a second sun. Kuroshi was blasted backward, transformation fully unraveling as Natsu's attack severed the last threads binding him to the ancient dragon's influence. Thought you could use a hand, Natsu grinned, hovering nearby as Happy maintained his altitude. The whole convergence thing is visible from both sides now. Makes for a pretty dramatic entrance opportunity. Your timing is impeccable, Wendy called to her guildmate, genuine relief in her voice. But we need to complete the barrier reinforcement before the convergence regains momentum. With Kuroshi temporarily neutralized, Naruto and Wendy refocused on their dimensional working. The sphere of harmonized dragon energy continued to expand outward, strengthening the natural barrier between worlds as it encountered weakened points in the dimensional fabric. But something was still missing. The convergence slowed but didn't reverse, the worlds remaining in dangerous proximity despite their efforts. It's not enough, Wendy realized with growing dismay. We're stabilizing the barrier, but we can't fully separate the worlds once they've come this close to merging. Within his mindscape, Acnologia stirred with reluctant insight. The Ancient Ones encoded the original separation. Their signature remains in the dimensional walls. Understanding flashed between Naruto and his sealed tenant. We need the original pattern, he told Wendy. The frequency used when the worlds were first divided. But that knowledge is lost, she protested. Not even Grandini knew the exact resonance. Acnologia does, Naruto replied, surprising himself with the certainty. He was there when it happened. Wendy's eyes widened with realization. Of course, in my world, Acnologia is old and out to have witnessed the original separation. And since they're essentially the same entity across dimensions, Naruto began. Your Acnologia would retain that memory, Wendy finished. Their ability to follow each other's thought patterns had grown remarkably synchronized through their shared ordeals. I can provide the pattern, the dragon confirmed within Naruto's consciousness. But it requires more direct access to your chakra network than the seal currently allows. The implication was clear. To access Acnologia's ancient memories of the dimensional separation, Naruto would need to loosen the seal further than ever before. The risk of losing himself to the dragon's influence would increase exponentially. He met Wendy's gaze, seeing understanding dawn in her brown eyes. You'll need to use more of his power, she stated rather than asked. Yes, but I might not be able to come back from it this time. Without hesitation, Wendy placed her palm against his chest, directly over the seal. You will, she said with quiet certainty. Because I'll be your anchor. Sky dragon magic can harmonize even Acnologia's chaos. The trust implicit in her statement gave Naruto the courage to proceed. Holding her securely against him with one arm, he used his free hand to adjust the seal configuration on his stomach. 8 trigrams seal. Memory access, he intoned, modifying the tradit. Ional release formula based on instinctive understanding of what was needed. The effect was immediate and profound. Acnologia's consciousness expanded through his mind like dark water filling every available space. Ancient memories cascaded through their shared awareness, fragments of a time before human civilization, when dragons ruled unchallenged across a single unified realm. Naruto saw through Acnologia's eyes as the dimensional separation occurred. Dragons of various aspects combining their powers to create distinct worlds where different forms of magic and chakra could develop independently. He felt the black dragon's rage at being confined, his determination to grow powerful enough to break the barriers that limited his dominion. Most crucially, he perceived the precise vibrational P, a term used to establish the dimensional walls, a complex frequency that resonated with the fundamental structure of reality itself. I have it, Naruto gasped, struggling to maintain his sense of self amid the flood of draconic memory. His voice had changed, deepened and layered with Acnologia's resonance as the partial transformation progressed further, scales spreading across his cheeks, eyes FTing to draconic slits of midnight blue. Wendy's grip on him tightened, her sky magic flowing continuously into his system to counterbalance Acnologia's overwhelming presence. Stay with me, she urged, her voice becoming his tether to humanity. Focus on the pattern, nothing else. With tremendous effort, Naruto channeled the ancient separation frequency through their combined dragon energies. The sphere surrounding them changed, shifting from simple protective barrier to active dimensional partition, rings of complex energy extending outward in perfect geometric progression. Across the convergence zone, the encroaching worlds began to separate. The ninja realm above and Earthland below gradually pulled apart as the reinforced dimensional walls reasserted themselves between realities. Kuroshi, now fully reverted to human form, watched in despair as his grand design unraveled. No, the ancients promised ascension. In a final desperate act, he hurled himself toward the receding gap between worlds. Oh no you don't, Natsu intercepted, happy carrying him directly into Kuroshi's path. You're staying on our side to face fairy tale justice. With a devastating fire dragon's talon, Nat Su sent the former researcher plummeting back toward Earthland, where the animated dragon skeletons had collapsed into inanimate bone once more. As the worlds continued separating, Naruto felt Acnologia's presence fighting for greater control. The black dragon sensed opportunity in the dimensional working, a chance to escape confinement not just within the seal, but to return to the nexus where dragon power reached its apex. Release me, Acnologia demanded, scales spreading further across Naruto's skin as the transformation deepened. My power alone can complete the separation. No, Naruto ground out, clinging desperately to his sense of self. We finish this together or not at all. The internal struggle manifested physically, wings beating erratically, chakra fluctuating wildly as human and dragon fought for dominance. Wendy clung to him through the turbulence, her sky magic the only thing preventing complete transformation. Naruto, she called, voice cutting through Acnologia's mental barrage. Remember who you are. Remember why we're doing this. Her words reached something essential within him. Not the ninja trained to complete missions at all costs, nor the Jinchuriki accused to using his sealed beast as weapon of last resort. Instead, they touched the core of Naruto Uzumaki, who had found unexpected connection with a young dragon slayer from another world. With renewed determination, he reasserted control over the partial transformation, forcing Acnologia's consciousness back to manageable proportions. I remember, he told Wendy, voice returning to normal as scales receded from his face. I'm doing this for both our worlds, and for us. Together, they completed the dimensional reinforcement, the ancient separation pattern spreading to encompass the entire convergence zone. As the worlds reached their proper distance, the remaining dimensional tiers began closing naturally, stability returning to the barrier between realms. The vortex above them contracted rapidly as the separation finalized, leaving only a small controlled opening, just enough for necessary transit between connected worlds rather than catastrophic convergence. We did it, Wendy breathed, exhaustion and triumph mingling in her voice as the dimensional storm subsided around them. Below, Earthland spread in panoramic beauty, mountains and forests and the distant sparkle of ocean. Above, the ninja world maintained its proper position in the dimensional hierarchy, separate but now permanently connected through the controlled passage they had established. Naruto's wings beat steadily as they descended toward Earthland's soil, the partial transformation now fully under his control. Within his seal, Acnologia had retreated to sullen acceptance, the dragon's ambitions temporarily thwarted, but his connection to Naruto fundamentally altered by their shared ordeal. As they approached the ground, Naruto saw fairy tale wizards gathering at the dragon graveyard's edge, likely drawn by the spectacular dimensional display and Natsu's unmistakable combat style. Among them, a small white exceed paced anxiously, eyes fixed on Wendy with obvious concern. That's Carla, Wendy explained, following his gaze. My partner. The realization that they had reached the moment of decision struck Naruto with unexpected force. With the dimensional crisis resolved and the worlds properly separated, the logical conclusion was clear. Fairy tale wizards would return to Earthland, ninja to the elemental nations, each maintaining their own separate existence with perhaps occasional diplomatic contact through the controlled passage. Which meant Wendy belonged here, in her world, with her guild. The thought created a hollow ache in his chest that had nothing to do with Acnologia's presence. In the relatively short time since Wendy had tumbled through that first rift into the ninja world, she had become essential to him in ways he was only beginning to fully understand. They touched down gently at the graveyard's edge, Naruto's wings folding instinctively behind him as he set Wendy carefully on her feet. Her guild mates approached with expressions ranging from relief to astonishment, largely at Naruto's partially transformed appearance. Wendy. Carla rushed forward, throwing small furry arms around the dragon slayer's legs. We've been searching everywhere. The entire guild has been in an uproar since you disappeared. I'm okay, Carla, Wendy assured her, kneeling to embrace the exceed properly. Thanks to Naruto. The white cat's critical gaze shifted to Naruto, taking in the Scaled wings and residual draconic features with obvious suspicion. And who exactly might you be? Before Naruto could answer, Natsu landed nearby, happy depositing him with a tired, "Aye sir." Before, collapsing dramatically onto the ground. That's the guy the first was telling you about, Natsu explained to the gathered wizards. The one with Acnologia sealed inside him from the other world. He's pretty awesome in a fight. The revelation sent a ripple of unease through the fairy tale members, many of whom had directly experienced Acnologia's destructive power in their own world. Naruto felt their wary gazes, so reminiscent of the treatment he'd received in Konoha during his childhood. To his surprise, Wendy stepped beside him, her small hand finding his with natural ease. "Naruto saved both our worlds," she stated firmly, challenging anyone to contradict her. Without him and Acnologia's power, the dimensional barriers would have collapsed completely. A small elderly man pushed through the crowd, Master Makarov. Naruto recognized from their brief meeting in Konoha. Despite his diminutive stature, the guild master carried himself with unmistakable authority. "The young lady speaks the truth," Makarov confirmed. "I witnessed the beginning of this working from the other side. Most impressive dimensional magic I've seen in all my years." His shrewd eyes assessed Naruto with particular interest. "Though I'd be curious to know how you're maintaining partial transformation without losing yourself to the dragon." Naruto's gaze returned to Wendy. "I had the perfect teacher," he said simply. "She showed me how to find balance with the dragon inside me." The answer seemed to satisfy Makarov, who nodded thoughtfully. Balance. Indeed, that's what allowed the dimensional reinforcement to succeed. Opposing dragon natures in perfect harmony. A tall woman with scarlet hair, Urza, Naruto recalled from their previous encounters, stepped forward with practical concerns. "The dimensional passage remains open, though significantly reduced. What does this mean for our worlds going forward?" "A permanent connection has been established," Wendy explained. "Smaller and stable, unlike the chaotic rifts before. Travel between dimensions should be possible for those with sufficient magical or chakra capacity." "Which means," Naruto continued, the implications becoming clear as he spoke, "our worlds are separate but linked. Independent but aware of each other." The revelation sparked immediate discussion among the gathered wizards, possibilities of cultural exchange, magical research, new alliances between previously isolated realms. Naruto observed their excitement with growing melancholy, acutely aware that his role in this new connected reality remained undefined. As the conversation flowed around them, Wendy tugged gently on his hand, leading him a short distance from the group. In the shadow of an ancient dragon skull, they found a moment of privacy amid the celebration. "Your wings," she noted, reaching tentatively toward the scaled appendages still folded against his back. "Are they permanent?" Naruto concentrated briefly, feeling Acnologia's power receding further as he willed the partial transformation to end. The wings dissolved into swirling chakra before disappearing completely, leaving him fully human in appearance once more. "Not permanent," he confirmed. "But easier to control now, thanks to you." Wendy smiled, though a shadow of sadness touched her eyes. "So you'll be returning to your world?" It wasn't quite a question, but Naruto heard the uncertainty behind her words. "I should," he acknowledged. "Konoha will need to establish protocols for the dimensional passage. The Hokage will want a full report on everything that's happened." "Of course," she nodded with forced brightness. "Your village needs you, just like fairy tale needs me." The unspoken hung heavy between them, the natural conclusion that they would return to their respective worlds. Their unexpected connection severed by dimensional practicalities. "It doesn't have to end," Naruto said suddenly, the words emerging before he could second-guess them. "The passage remains open. Travel between worlds is possible now." Hope flickered in Wendy's expression. "You mean, visits?" "I mean whatever we want it to mean." Naruto took both her hands in his, newfound clarity driving away uncertainty. "These past weeks have shown me something I never expected to find, someone who understands both sides of me. The human and the dragon." "I feel the same way," Wendy admitted softly. "With you, I don't have to hide any part of my dragon slayer nature. There's a balance between us that I've never experienced with anyone else. Then we find a way to maintain that balance," Naruto stated with growing conviction. "Even across dimensions." A gentle cough interrupted their moment. They turned to find Master Makarov standing nearby, attempting to appear as though he hadn't been eavesdropping. "Forgive the intrusion," the old wizard said without a trace of genuine remorse, "but I couldn't help overhearing your dilemma. Perhaps I might offer a solution." "What kind of solution?" Naruto asked cautiously. Makarov's eyes twinkled with mischief and wisdom in equal measure. "The stable passage between worlds requires maintenance, individuals with specific magical or chakra signatures who see and travel between realms to ensure dimensional harmony is preserved." "You mean like ambassadors?" Wendy suggested, catching on quickly. "Precisely." Makarov beamed approvingly. "Dimensional ambassadors who would split their time between worlds, representing their realm's interests while maintaining the delicate balance we've established." The implication was clear, an official reason for Naruto and Wendy to maintain contact across dimensional boundaries, with freedom to move between worlds as needed. "I believe," Makarov continued innocently, "that individuals with complementary dragon energies would be particularly suited to such a role. The same harmonization that reinforced the barriers could help maintain them." Naruto felt a smile spreading across his face as he considered the elegant solution. Lady Tsunade would probably approve. "For diplomatic reasons, of course." "Of course," Makarov agreed with a completely unconvincing solemnity. "Purely diplomatic. Nothing to do with personal attachments whatsoever." With a wink that demolished any pretense of official detachment, the guild master wandered back to the main group, leaving Naruto and Wendy to consider the possibility he had outlined. "Dimensional ambassadors." Wendy tested the phrase, a smile blooming across her face. "I like the sound of that. Partners in maintaining balance between worlds," Naruto added, feeling Acnologia's grudging approval within the seal. Even the black dragon seemed to recognize the value of their continued connection. The sun had begun to set over Earthland, casting long shadows across Dragon Graveyard and painting the sky in shades of amber and gold. In the distance, the dimensional passage shimmered with stable energy, a permanent bridge between worlds that had nearly destroyed each other. "We should head back," Wendy said, glancing toward her waiting guild mates. "Fairy Tail will want to celebrate our return, and I need to make sure Carla hasn't worried herself sick. And I should report to Lady Tsunade." Naruto acknowledged. "Convince her that having a Sky Dragon Slayer as Konoha's dimensional ambassador is in everyone's best interest." They walked hand in hand toward the gathered wizards, their connected shadows stretching behind them across ancient dragon bones. Whatever challenges the newly linked worlds might face, whatever adjustments their unusual partnership might require, one truth remained unshakable: Black Dragon and Sky Dragon had found harmony against all odds. And neither dimensional barriers nor ancient dragons could sever the bond they had forged between worlds. Chapter 3 End.